Welcome into a very special episode of Rip City Retro. My name is Rich Finley. I'm here with Eric Brandt. Now, today, like I said, it's a very special episode because we are going to be breaking down the Netflix series Untold, the Jailblazers. And this, I'm telling you people, this is going to be your only companion piece that you're going to need for this documentary, okay? And you guys know, if you guys have been here with the channel for 3 years, you know I don't toot my own horn, okay? Tried that in junior high, couldn't reach, gave it up, okay? So no horn tooting, but I'm just telling you, what we have got for you today is the definitive breakdown of this documentary. And if you think you know what direction I personally am going to go in with this documentary, I highly doubt it. So, with all that said, Eric, it's good to see you. How are you?
I'm good, Rich. How are you today?
I'm good. You know, we're filming this on Wednesday. This is going to go out on Thursday. The Blazers won the 7-8 game with the Phoenix Suns last night. Denny Avdia, 41 points. Huge game. Great comeback by the Blazers. Down 8 with 3:11 to go. So great. It's going to be so exciting to see the Blazers in the playoffs. And we'll have an opportunity to talk more about that later. But we want to get into this documentary. So we did a preview video just a couple days ago, and hopefully you guys saw that, where we made some predictions and concerns of the doc and things like that. Eric also, side note, predicted 112-110 Blazers in the Suns game.
112, 108.
112, 108. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then it came out 114, 110. So you were off by
Very
like
close.
2 points each. Like, you gotta seriously do better. But anyway, but go back and watch our predictions for this video, because now that we've both seen the documentary, I think it's pretty interesting how it turned out, and I'm glad we did that prediction video. So, Eric, you just watched it. You started it yesterday and finished it today, right? So you did it in 2 parts.
Yeah, I got home a little later than I was expecting from work. Tried to watch it all before the Blazer playing game. Couldn't quite finish all of it. Got through about 40 minutes or so of it, and then finished it up when I got home today.
Okay.
And so it's still fresh in my mind. Took a whole 2 pages of notes, as I'm sure you did. And
yes,
yeah.
you know I did.
So many things to talk about.
So many things to talk about. So, Eric, the documentary opens with the very loud, awkward voice of Steve Ballmer, which I really appreciated. Yeah. With, just pimping Microsoft out to the max.
I get what they were going through for there, but that was weird to show him instead of like Paul Allen or whatever. I don't. That whole thing was weird.
Yeah,
I know they were setting up the Paul Allen part of Microsoft, but yeah, I was like, why?
I think it's a wink and a nod to just overall NBA fans to be able to show that, this thing has tentacles
An
that
Easter
go.
egg.
Yeah, a little Easter egg, because they didn't say that it was Steve Ballmer, but if you know, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And then the documentary shows Paul Allen and talk about the day that he acquired the team, and then immediately the documentary does something that is going to become one of the themes of this documentary in terms of issues that I have with it. Is it just like slams together timelines or just skips over things very, very quickly. And you would have thought that Paul Allen bought the Blazers and then hired Bob Whitsitt shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
4 minutes later, here's Bob Whitsitt. Yeah, tell him how long in between. So Paul
go
Allen
ahead.
bought
You
the
do
team in what, 1988, right?
88, yes.
So, and then let us know, Rich, what year Bob Whitsitt was hired.
1994.
Okay, and
which is 6 years.
So
with
I know this documentary is about
education.
The Jail Blazers, but they skipped over a pretty important 6-year stretch in Blazer history.
You would have thought
it never even happened.
You would have thought that Paul Allen never had success with the Blazers.
Well,
And that's
it
why
made
he
it
went and got Bob Whitsitt.
yeah, it made it seem like he bought the team after the
Yeah.
finals runs in 90 and 92, not before. So that yeah, that already I was just like, okay, that's kind of weird. Why are they making it seem like Whitsitt was Paul Allen's first hire when that was 6 years later? Well, I'm like, okay, I'll just brush that to the side and and forget that because it's not really that important to
And
the story, I guess. But
and of course, just to note, like Jeff Petrie, former Trailblazer player, then was the general manager and was executive of the year. So it's not like Whitsitt was like replacing a slouch or
right,
something
yeah,
like that, right?
with no, like you said, with no success ever, and
Yeah.
just a bum franchise, and here comes the savior, like it made it seem like. But then it does, like, so I'm like, okay, just ignore it. Like, it's a documentary. They don't have a lot of time. Like, it's just they're gonna cut corners in some things. But then it said Bob's first big move is trading for Rasheed
Well,
Wallace.
okay. Okay. So I want to make sure that we unpack this thing because Whitsitt, like, immediately is coming in hot with the pompous attitude in the dock,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
if you saw my preview video, I was thrilled about. I was like, yes,
yeah.
please lean
Well, you
into
really
it.
wanted him to be included as partly to blame for all this,
Yes, he
and he
needs.
definitely was.
Yes, he needed accountability, and he got it, and he's going to get more of it today from us. But
Quick question though:
sure.
if you replaced Bob Whitsitt with Neil O'Shea in this documentary and just had him pretend to be Bob Whitsitt, would you have noticed? Like it,
Well, yeah.
I
Well, I would have because
well, no,
Winston like took big swings and chances and stuff like that. Would you say
yeah,
Olshey did that?
no, but just some of his comments, it just
Oh,
was
you're talking
very
about it from a
like,
personality standpoint.
yeah, just
Ah,
like
got it.
very O'Shea esque, like yeah, I don't know. Like there's some stuff that'll come later that I was like, man, that I if you just replaced that with Neil Olshey, it would like verbatim almost something Olshey said. I can't wait to bring that up later.
Well, no, that'll be great. I will say so. The theme that I was talking about earlier that will come up that they did with basically saying Allen bought the team and then here's Bob Whitsitt. The doc like compresses timelines through omission and kind of leads you to draw your own conclusion that the things that you're being delivered are happening in chronological order. And
Yeah,
so, like, as a fan who lived through this and experienced this, and because it's been so many years, like, it's the funny thing about my brain injury, Eric. Like, my brain injury affects my day to day. So like I have a hard time remembering what I'm supposed to do, or like one of the weird things in my brain injury is I can focus so strongly on needing to do something that there's a part of my brain that thinks I've already done it, which is kind of wild. But when it comes to like this stuff, when it comes to like, oh no, in 1999,
right.
like my past stuff with the Blazers is really solid, which is why this
I
channel
mean,
is so
you're amazing at that. Yeah,
well, which is why this channel is so good for me because it at least like my day to day life makes me feel stupid, but my looking back on Blazer stuff makes me feel better. So anyway, but the doc does this quite a bit in which they don't lie to you. The doc doesn't lie to you, but it leads you to draw natural conclusions that are actually inaccurate. And
yeah,
I think I know why they do that, and we'll get into that as we go along. I don't think it was nefarious or anything like that, but it is misleading. So the doc is
yeah.
misleading in many ways. So let's go back to Whitsitt. So Whitsitt has that amazing quote of, Paul, I'm not interested in educating the market on the NBA. I'm like, okay, dude, like, shut up. Like,
Wow.
Bob, please come, please, sir, explain the NBA to us. Please, we don't know. Like, I'm not interested in explaining the NBA to the market. I'm not interested in selling tickets, and I'm not interested in running the franchise. I just want to build the team. Like, like coming in hot is Witsit with the arrogance. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was definitely another theme of this show, in particular when it came to him, was just the assumptions that he knew exactly what the fan base wanted and needed, and their knowledge level and all that kind of stuff. Made it seem like he was this like mastermind, and I'm going to teach these underlings that know nothing about basketball
Well,
how to build a team and build a winner.
so it's important to denote where he was when he came into the franchise. So he had just been the architect of the Seattle Supersonics team that went 63-19, had the best record in the NBA, and was the first number one seed to lose to an eighth seed. And then he
Yeah.
was peace out, deuces. I'm going down the road to Portland. But the way Witsit talked about it, you would have thought they won championships in Seattle. He was like, I had the best record in the league. Nobody did it any better than that. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
And he was in Portland when they made the finals and all that stuff. So,
Yeah,
yeah, he wasn't even I mean, he had built some of that team, but like,
yeah,
yeah, he wasn't like there still when they made the finals. So,
yeah. So that I don't know. That was also amusing to me. And then he talks about, and this is just kind of a little capsule in time in terms of how old we are. But how old did you feel when Witsit said, "I didn't even have a computer with the Sonics"? I was just like, oh my gosh, what? And then he was like, I got here to the Blazers and they gave me a laptop and I was ready to go. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, that was really, he was like, what is the quote? I was given a laptop. I was on email. I had everything. I was on email. Like, I haven't heard somebody talk like that in decades. Like, that was just amazing. Um,
yeah,
so,
thinking about it though, it made sense because I remember it was like my senior year in high school, which would have been '97. Um, really getting into like AOL and
oh yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
so yeah, it would have been. I mean, that was just a few years before that. So
And by the
um,
way, I really wanted to know what you thought about this quote. When Witsit says that Allen looked at him in the summer of 1994 and said, and by the way, we're going to make the playoffs this year. And then Witsit said, oh, I didn't have a lot of time. And then the very next thing that they show Witsit doing is acquiring Rasheed Wallace, which
yeah,
took place 2 years
I
later. Like, it was just a
yeah.
weird moment.
See, I was like, it was already starting to lose me at that point. Not that I got lost or anything. Like, this was very fascinating throughout, and I'm glad they made it. And it's always fun to see old clips, whether it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a good thing. Oh, maybe not the Shaq lob, but you knew that was going to be in there.
Of course.
But yeah, so like I said, kind of like just okay, just ignore the fact that Witsit was hired 6 years after Paul Allen, not immediately. Um, and then they lead right into that where, oh, first big move. I acquired Rasheed Wallace. Like I made this like huge splash right away.
Yeah.
2 years later, that trade happened in 1996. The
And the Blazers made the playoffs in 95 and in 96.
They made
Main,
the playoffs every year.
yeah, every year.
That wasn't the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they made it sound like this was some like horrid franchise that had this long playoff drought, which he ends up causing later on.
right.
But
Yeah,
it,
he inherited a 47 win team.
yeah,
Who Drexler had missed like 16 or 17 games that year when they won
2
47
years
games. So,
removed from the finals.
yeah, 2 years removed from the finals. They had just had two first round exits. Paul Allen was getting a little itchy, so they let go of Rick Adelman way too early. So it's not like he was inheriting a bad team. That was just kind of hilarious
Yeah,
gaslighting. But
I mean, what Clyde was traded in '95, right?
yeah,
So it was
yeah, Valentine's Day of '95.
yeah, so it was like he didn't even trade Clyde that summer. Like it just completely glosses over the fact that Clyde Drexler was still on this team, his
Yeah.
almost his entire first season as GM, and
Well,
like you said,
it's
and then we
Clyde.
had another whole season after that
Yeah.
before we even, which we also made the playoffs without Rasheed Wallace, but I mean that was, I guess, his first big move if you don't include trading Drexler away, but
And
yeah.
Drexler demanded a trade, like wanted out.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't crazy about Carlissimo, Witsit. Like Drexler had been used to the way that they were able to be competitive with Rick Adelman, Jeff Petrie, and Drexler really didn't like the direction of the organization. I think a lot of that at that time really just had to do with Clyde wanted a contract extension, and Witsit wasn't willing to commit to him right then and there, and so Drexler wanted out. Moving on to Rashid, people forget part of the reason that Rashid was available from Washington was because they were loaded at the forward position. They had Chris Webber and Juwan Howard and Rasheed Wallace on that team all at the same time. So Rasheed was kind of the odd man out there. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like Rasheed was necessarily a cast off or had been in a lot of trouble or anything like that. Like Bob was just kind of opportunistic in that regard in terms of getting Rashid.
I mean, it was a
Um,
great deal.
oh, I was so thrilled when we got Rashid, and the doc then goes into Rashid bursting on the scene, and then very quick. I mean, they're showing how versatile he is. There was that one quote, Rashid coming to the Blazers was like dropping the base on this franchise. They start showing a lot of lobs and a lot of the different things that he can do. Like I know the kids like to say, so and so has such a bag and things like that. But when you look at all the different ways that Rashid could score, oh my gosh, like the guy was just so talented. Um,
Yeah,
one of
it
my
was like,
favorite players in terms of like the skill set. Like he was so. I mean, he could be infuriating at times because, and I said this in the last video. You just wanted him to be more assertive and aggressive and be an alpha dog. Um, that just wasn't him. And it's interesting. Like I heard somebody make a comment. Maybe that's the Carolina, in him because people said a lot of the same things about Vince Carter. However, Michael Jordan also went to North Carolina, so I mean it's not in stone, but just in terms of all the different ways that he could score, he was so talented and so fun to watch. Go ahead.
yeah, for those that didn't have a chance to watch him, just think of like a souped up, more athletic, better version of LaMarcus Aldridge. And
Oh yeah,
um, but like he
better
had that
better
turnaround
range.
jump shot.
Yeah,
Yeah, turnaround jump shot, only he could hit it further out, could pick and pop out to the 3-point line. Um, threw down some vicious alley oop dunks. Like there was a couple that I still don't know how he caught it and got the ball to the rim on some of those.
yeah.
Just crazy athleticism and ability and stuff like that. And I mean, he was really a talented player.
Yeah, so I really like the way that they introduced him in the doc, and then they start talking about, well, we need to get him help, and then
We need a point guard, Rich.
which is really interesting because I thought he came to a pretty talented team, and Kenny Anderson was on the team at the time, and
Yeah,
it was pretty good
very
for them.
good point guard too. Yeah,
Yeah, he was a pretty good point guard too. So they end up talking about the 1997-98 season, and that is when the Blazers make a trade to bring home hometown kid Damon Stoudemire, which I remember at the time. I was in college in West Virginia at the time. I was stunned that we got him. I mean, obviously the hometown connection made a big difference there, but um, he was really hot on the trade market. And, I was so thrilled when we got him. I was looking at the trade today and I was just like, oh man, we brought back Damon and Walt Williams, the wizard. I used to love Walt Williams.
yeah.
And of course, they shipped out Kenny Anderson and Gary Trent. Those were the two main players that went out. Um,
Well,
and
Alvin Williams too.
yeah,
He was
that's true.
kind of a fan favorite, younger guy. But yeah,
Yeah, so then they start talking about Damon, and Rashid talks
Well,
about. Go ahead.
real quick, so this also made it seem like that move was like right after the Rasheed Wallace trade too. It's like, oh, I'm gonna assemble this super team, and I traded for Sheed. Now we need a point guard. Let's go get Damon Stoudemire. When this was almost 2 years later that he acquired once again. You mentioned it, the smush timeline. So
Yes,
this didn't just happen like it portrayed. Witzett's hired. He gets Rasheed Wallace. He gets Damon Stoudemire, and all of a sudden we're on our way.
right.
This was 4 years later now that we have Damon Stoudemire and Rasheed Wallace, not like that first offseason or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. So then they talk about moving on to the next season when they bring in Bonzi Wells, and they kind of like they kind of introduce Bonzi almost like he was a huge piece of help, when in reality, like they had J.R. Ryder, they had Jim Jackson. Like
He didn't play his rookie year.
he didn't play his rookie year.
He played 7 games, like all garbage time. Like Jan Hansen played more than him this
Yeah,
year.
exactly, exactly. So, but I get it. I mean, they're like the three pillars of the doc. So you want to see how Bonzi came to the team, and then they start talking. And by the way, Bonzi said don't talk about his draft suit, but his draft
That was
suit
hilarious. Yeah,
was hilarious. It was like
yeah.
wearing daddy's clothes, which was amazing. So I got a kick out of that. And then the doc kicks into, I think, what a lot of us anticipated being a highlight of it was Pippen, Scottie Pippen coming to the team. And
Real
yeah, go ahead.
real quick before we move on from the Bonzi thing, I do want to mention it was kind of funny that he had no idea where Portland even was. You mentioned, is it Portland,
But he
Maine?
knew
Or
Maine, which is interesting. And
yeah.
you're thinking, aren't you growing up as an NBA fan? Didn't you see Clyde Drexler play Michael Jordan in the finals? Like, it's
Maybe not.
kind of interesting. So,
I This is going to sound very disrespectful to Bonzi.
okay.
Uh, and he was a good player. And we'll get into it later. The ending um, was probably in terms of feeling something warm inside, was probably the best part about the documentary. But
I agree with you, by the way.
uh, okay, he was a good player and all that, but he was not.
You are dancing around saying we didn't need Bonzi Wells.
No, I'm not saying we didn't need him, but he was not the level of player
No,
that Damon and Sheed were, or most of these guys. Like he was more like the Tamani Kamara role, like the role player. I mean, he averaged 17 points one season, 15 another season, but it's not like he was like this star player that we acquired and it made it and like had this immediate impact, like you mentioned. He did not, and so
and that's
I
not like
do.
and that's not like it was his fault. Like he was playing
Yeah,
behind some real studs.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
absolutely, and but yeah, it does make it seem like those were like a big three that we acquired.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm sorry to Bonzi, like this is not disrespectful at all, but you were not on that level of those guys. And they even said it. Uh, it took them a while. They gave him a hard time before they accepted him or whatever.
yeah,
And they, they made a joke about him not being a cool kid until he almost picked a fight with someone or
Karl
stood up
Malone.
for someone.
It was Karl Malone.
Yeah, Karl Malone.
Yeah,
And so yeah, it made it seem like he made a draft day trade for the missing third piece, and the truth is Bonzi was never that. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, I'll save what else I want to say for later, but I just wanted
Okay.
to mention that I was a little bothered by the fact that it seemed to prop Bonzi into this, and I know he unfairly gets put with the Jailblazers because he was here that whole time pretty much. But
Well, he also had the really bad quote too, which
yeah,
stuck with him forever.
and we'll definitely get to that too.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say, like, if you watch this documentary and you had no idea about the past of the Portland Trailblazers, Bonzi was not like this star player or
Right.
whatever like Sheed and Damon were.
Did you, was there ever a time that you felt like he was on that trajectory?
Oh, sure. I
Like
definitely thought,
when he scored 18 points in game 6 of the Western Conference Finals in 2000, I was like, he's
yeah,
going to be amazing. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
because
And
he had so much to his game. I mean, he could shoot. He
mm,
was big and strong and really aggressive. I remember they used to post him up on Kobe
yeah,
when Bonzi was a young player. Of course, Kobe was kind of light in the cakes, and you could post him up down low. But yeah, I mean, he just had so much raw material to work with that
mm,
I really felt good about the Blazers' future at two guard with Bonzi there when he came to the team. But obviously, like he never he never reached that level. In part because of the guys that he was playing behind, and then in part because of just the way that everything evolved with the
yeah.
team. But I mean, as I
And
saw
like
his
he,
development, I loved him. I thought he was great.
I mean, we'll get to this more in depth, but I mean, he alludes to the fact that those comments ended up ruining his career, and you can definitely trace it back to. Um, I mean, he was one of those. We've talked about this before on the channel. Like, Portland loves those young guys who are trying to fight for the rotation, and then
Well,
show
we love
glimpses
to
of
see
what
guys
they could
grow
do.
up. We love to see guys
Yeah,
grow up, right?
and he was one of those guys that Portland fans were just waiting for him to take that next step. And those comments really made it so like he wasn't feeling the
Well,
love in Portland anymore. So
and we'll get in this in the timeline because I got the whole timeline here. But the way it's presented in the timeline, it's misrepresented when those comments came.
yeah,
So like it yeah, we'll get into it. And I know that people are like, well, you keep saying you're going to get into this stuff. Like, when
yeah,
are you going to get into it? There's kind
yeah.
of there's one inciting incident that immediately like explodes this issue of the timeline, and we'll get to
Mhm.
it. So Pippen comes to the Blazers. I loved, by the way, I loved, give Whitsitt his flowers here. I love the way he sold Scotty on coming to the Blazers. It was like,
Yeah,
you're going to be fourth banana in LA behind Shaq and Kobe and Phil. You will have never won a ring without Phil. If you come here, you win without Michael, you win without Phil. That was chef's kiss, perfect pitch to Scottie Pippen. I love that. I love that moment.
they almost did it.
Yeah, and
I mean,
he
he
was
almost
almost right.
won. He almost they did pretty well without Jordan when he retired that year and a half, and then he almost comes here and gets one. I
Yeah.
don't know how they didn't win with him and Charles Barkley
Oh,
and
well,
Hakeem, but
Barkley was done. Like
yeah, I know.
Barkley started getting hurt.
But you still had Pippen and Hakeem, Kenny Smith. Like, yeah, it's
No, Kenny
still a
Smith was
pretty tough.
gone. Kenny Smith never played on the Barkley teams.
Oh, right. Yeah, he left that
Yeah,
one.
like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
waived him the summer before Barkley. And I actually
that's right.
thought, just side note about Kenny Smith since he came up, losing Kenny Smith was a low key locker room leader for the Houston Rockets.
Yeah,
Because anytime you look at footage of them for the championship years, he's kind of leading them in the huddles. He's the one, whenever they were down in series, who would start smack talking, like, we're going to come back and things like that. Like, I really felt like the Rockets, because I paid attention to the Rockets, obviously, when Drexler got traded there. Losing Kenny Smith was a low key was a low key reason that they weren't more successful. And funny story, I got to tell Kenny Smith that because we were at a movie theater
I bet
at
he
the same.
loved that.
Well, I mean, he did love it actually, but yeah, got to have a real nice conversation with him.
Nice.
We were both at a movie theater. I think we were seeing like one of the Avengers movies or whatever. And I just kind of ran into him, and he was just like right there. And I didn't bug him for an autograph or a picture or anything like that, but we just got to talk a little bit, and we talked about those Rockets teams. And I told him, I was like, like they did not go back to the finals once you were gone, and I really felt like your presence in the locker room was sorely missed. And he was like, "Oh yeah, no question, no question, no question." So yeah, he was a really good dude. But anyway, so getting back into this, so then we see Colin Cowherd. Now, I as someone who grew up in West Virginia, take a drink. Uh, I'm fascinated by Colin Cowherd being in Portland because this is really before the internet, so it's not like I ever got to hear Colin Cowherd cover the Blazers or anything like that. So, what was that like? And Colin almost seems like he was set up as the, oh, this is the guy that's going to go at the team all the time. Is that kind of fair, or what was Cowherd like in Portland covering the team?
Yeah, I mean, he just he, I would say he didn't really cover the team other than he had a radio show,
Okay.
and so he covered it via his radio
Well, that's
show.
what I
But it's
meant.
not
I'm
like
sorry.
he, but I don't know, he wasn't like a beat reporter or whatever. But he also had, so he had kind of dual role. He was also on one of our local newscasts as well as like the sports guy.
Mm-hmm.
So back when they had those. Uh, so yeah, he was all over the place, and it was kind of surprising when he got hired by ESPN. But he did have kind of that feel of like a more like of a national
Yeah.
type guy. Um, and yeah, got a big break when ESPN hired him. Then he later moved on to Fox. But
What did you think of his assessment of Portland? That Portland is kind of like a wet Austin, Texas.
I I thought that was kind of weird because I mean Portland gets compared to Austin a lot, but in my view,
I mean,
it's
liberal cities. I
yeah,
mean,
in my view, it's kind of I mean, I don't know if I'm biased because I live in Portland, but I always thought like Austin kind of came after us, not the other way around.
I feel
So
like that. No, I think nationally that feels about right. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know like the history of Austin or anything, but like it felt like, but like we've always been considered similar sister cities.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I I really enjoyed when Rashid and Damon were talking about Pippen showed up with security.
Yeah,
And after a few days, they got him to quit doing that, and they were basically able to like get him to do the cornrows and things like that. Like I got a big
yeah,
kick out of that. I also really like Bonzi when he was like I used to just stare at him from across the locker room, and he just looked like a god to me. And like
hmm,
I dug that. I dug like the respect and the reverence for a guy that's won 6 championships. So
absolutely.
I thought that was pretty cool. So I thought they did a really nice job. I wish they would. I wish they could have gotten Pippen for the doc. Obviously, have no idea why they
Well, that,
didn't. Um,
that was one thing. I mean, they brought in Sean Kemp was kind of surprising later on, but I was actually. I mean, I know those were the three guys they wanted to focus on, and I don't know if other people just declined to participate or what, but I was kind of surprised on the lack of any other players from that era coming on
well,
the show.
I watched a couple of interviews for this with the director of the doc,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty sure I heard him say that he interviewed multiple people, including Clyde and Buck Williams, but they wanted to keep it focused on
Mhm.
Rashid and Damon and Bonzi, which coming out of this thing, and I think a lot of the reasons that they compress things together and kind of fudge with the timelines and things like that were because of the storytelling aspect of it, and because they were pressed for time, and they kind of
Yeah,
felt like, well, we need to get to things quicker, we need to get to the meat quicker. And I really think that this thing could have really benefited from being like a 3 episode series, and you could have started off like your first 15 to 20 to 30 minutes of like the Drexler era and that relationship with that team, because
mhm.
that dovetails right into Whitsett's era, and kind of overlaps it a little bit at the tail end of that era. And I just feel like
Well,
it would have done a better job of telling the story. And I would have loved to have heard what, for instance, Buck Williams had to say
yeah,
about the team. But anyway, go ahead.
I understand though. We're Blazer fans that would like that. Maybe nationally it doesn't play big enough to do more than what they did.
Yeah.
Um, but we're kind of spoiled by The Last Dance because it had so many parts to it and was able to set up everything into that season that they talk about, and had like full episodes on lead ups to what happened. So got
Well,
kind of spoiled with that being so
well,
good.
it was also a pandemic, and we needed
Right.
content,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
they were like,
Exactly.
we'll just make as many episodes of this thing as we can. So then they go into Game Seven. I mean, we all knew it was going to happen. So they get right to Game Seven of it all, and talk about the Blazers' big lead. And I mean, it's been talked to death. First off, were there any revelations in there discussing what happened in Game Seven or anything like that that stood out to you, or you just want to move on to the off season?
I mean, I don't think it was a revelation. I mean, they did miss a bunch of shots in the fourth quarter
Oh
as
yeah,
well. Yeah. Uh, I
I
mean, I
did
was
enjoy I did enjoy Damon's perception of the Brian Shaw three at the end of the third
yeah,
quarter when he was like, "Oh, here comes the bullshit." Like
yeah,
I did
yeah.
enjoy that.
I kind of like that. I don't know. They seem pretty into that game and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it made me feel kind of bad about what happened to them in the fourth quarter. But
Oh yeah, of course. So then we get to what I think is the hold on timeout. What are we doing here, documentary? Because Damon is shown and he's talking about, you know, well, we almost won that series. We're gonna get him next year. We're gonna run it back. And then he says that's when everything started. Now, he's talking about the summer of 2000.
yeah,
And now, granted, we don't necessarily know exactly what Damon meant by everything, but I mean, I mean we're all here to do the Jailblazer stock. So I think that's kind of what he's getting at. And then the doc takes us right into talking about salaries escalating, and and by the way, like salaries were exploding at this point in time. I mean, you and I grew up in a time where Michael Jordan was I think at one time he was the eighth highest paid player on the Bulls, just because he had signed such a long contract with them, and there were so many players who had like Jordan. There was a time where Jordan was making like $2 million a year with the Bulls, and then younger players who came in with higher salary cap numbers and things like that were making much more than him. Now Jordan didn't care because he was making so much in endorsements, and of course he made the Bulls pay for that later when he was the first athlete ever, or the first NBA player ever, getting 30 million a season for 1 year
yeah.
deals, like 3 years in a row. But they start talking about, young players getting all this money and moving into the upscale neighborhood where the lake is there. And what was the player's name for the lake, Eric? I forget. What were they calling it?
Um,
You don't want to say it.
I forgot what they called it.
They called
Oswego
it
Lake.
Lake No Something.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
no African American players, is
yeah,
what they were calling it. Pretty funny that they were calling it that amongst themselves, but um, they go into the idea that people in the community maybe we're looking at all these young guys with all this money and fancy cars and bling and stuff like that. Now we were in a different time. I was kind of looking back on this. This is really starting to get into the rap culture era where
hmm
you had a lot of this stuff that, you know, for their part, Clyde and Terry and Jerome and all those guys, like they kind of missed out on. So Rashid and Damon and Bonzi and the players around that age range, they weren't doing anything that was very different than guys their own age across the country, no matter what color they were. I remember, I remember when I was in college. Here's how stupid I was. When I was in college, I went to like Ross, like those the
yeah,
discount store Ross. So I went to Ross and I saw this like anything red and black, I will take a look at and possibly buy it. Okay, like I just love red and black, and so I saw this sweatshirt in in Ross, and it was red and black, and it like had some writing on it and things like that, but it had these great stripes and things like that. It almost looked like a Blazers sweatshirt. I was like, this is so cool. And of course, I didn't get my hands on a lot of Blazers stuff, being on the other side of the country, and I I wore it to go play pickup basketball with a couple of friends of mine, and like my friends, they were black, and they looked at me, they were like, "Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "Oh, I got it at Ross. Yeah, you like it?" And they were like, "Why are you wearing that?" And it was FUBU. It was a
Uh,
FUBU sweatshirt. I had no idea. And they were like, "Well, that means for us, by us." And I was like, "Oh, I had no idea." And they're like, "No, it's cool. You can wear it." I didn't know, but but so those
did you
guys,
still rock it?
I still have it somewhere. I should wear it on a
Uh,
stream and then
yeah.
get the channel demonetized. But but no, but what Rashid and Damon and all those guys were kind of repping clothing wise and stuff like that was really no different than kids were doing of their own age. It's just the spotlight is on them a lot greater, and they've got all this money, and I mean that's kind of a combustible combination. And of course, the community was still used to like grown adults playing winning basketball, right? Like guys in their 30s, who have
Mhm.
family and kids and things like that. So, it was a little bit of a sea change for the community. But you tell me, I mean, you were there. Like, was there any, and by the way, because you see him in a couple of pictures of this, Cliff Robinson is still on this team up until, what was it, like 97?
Something
97,
like that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rashid and Cliff played together, and it was probably because she was so good that Cliff moved on. But Rashid got to play with Cliff for at least a year. Um, but yeah, I mean, they start to introduce the element of there's a concern, young, rich black athletes in Portland with money, making people a little uncomfortable, that kind of thing. But I mean, do you remember what that time was like? Was anybody really talking about that stuff where you were?
I mean, it is okay. They certainly did not do anything wrong,
No.
but it's also kind of rude to like go into a quiet neighborhood with your stereo and loud cars
Oh,
going off and stuff like that. So, like, I do understand this, but okay,
and that
like,
by the way, that knows no color. The
right, yeah,
the whitest guy I knew growing up had the big like had the big bass
of
in his
course,
car. No, the big bass in his car, and
uh,
you could hear him
you can
coming
hear
from like 5 miles away.
windows rattling, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just
Um,
so rude, so rude.
so Lake Oswego is like the fanciest of the neighborhoods or suburban areas of Portland.
It
It
looks
is,
beautiful. It looked beautiful in the
yeah.
dog.
It so obviously with Portland at the time being a pretty white city, that being the most upscale section of Portland, they obviously did not have to deal with people of color very often there. Um, but I want to tell you about something that's happening currently in Lake Oswego.
Oh yeah,
All right, so that lake you referred to,
yeah.
Oswego Lake. Um,
Does Dame like own all of it?
Dame actually he'll go out on the river. Like he doesn't. I don't know if he goes to Oswego Lake or not, but
Okay,
he used to ride his jet skis with all his buddies like down the Willamette River. So that was cool, like by the Moda Center and stuff.
cool.
But anyways, so Oswego Lake, uh, is or was intended to be a private lake for only Lake Oswego residents to use. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And so a few years ago, some people sued them for the right, like,
Who's
to be able
them?
to use,
The lake?
like, like they sued the city of Lake
Oh,
Oswego or whatever to like be able to use the lake. Like it should be a public lake that anyone can enjoy. Why do only certain people get to use it or
the rich
whatever?
people. Yeah.
Um, and so there's been like years of legal battle, and the people of Lake Oswego are like, no, peasants aren't allowed to use our lake. So that's the type of area it is, Rich. And so a judge ruled, this was like a year or two ago, that anyone could use the lake. It is a public lake. They do not have the right to
Okay.
tell people they don't want to go.
Okay.
So what do? They hire security guards, off-duty cops. Now they police the lake and try to like tell people they can't go in it, even though this judge ruled they can. Right. So it's been this mess of a thing, and
Oh man.
it makes people want to just get like the ugliest boats and the worst looking floaties and just go hang out in the lake to piss these people off because they're so
Well, it's the
like this. Okay,
it's the Streisand effect, right? Like everybody's
right.
just like they want to do it even more.
So undoubtedly, this area was probably racist towards these players back then, and probably still is. But
Yeah.
I just want to make it clear they hate anyone who's not them, and hate anyone who is not on their level. Status wise, class wise, money wise, financially. So all that stuff, and
Listen,
they.
if I was there out on my back porch with a banjo,
Mhm.
they'd have come for my head too.
So they literally put like fake signs up over, like took the ones down saying it's a public lake and put up fake signs saying no, you still can't use this or whatever.
Oh my
It's been
gosh.
this whole mess. So like this is the type of area we're talking about. And so that's not to excuse them. Like they're
No, of
absolutely in the
course.
wrong for all this. Um, but at the same time, like if I move into a neighborhood like that, I'm not going to like purposely do anything to draw attention to myself or piss people off. And that is their right to do if they want to do that.
Yeah.
Like you said, that they never did anything wrong to those people. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if they necessarily had to live in that area. But that was not, I just want to make it clear that area is probably like the worst example of Portland in
Oh,
terms of how they would treat someone like that.
okay.
If they lived in any other area, I don't think this would even be a clip in the story. So like and nowadays it's relatively fine too, but yeah, I mean like Dame lives in West Lynn, which is pretty close to there, but not it's not really the same city. So
I just
yeah, it's like
I just think that I mean obviously, I think you should always try to understand people who are different than you, right? And not
yeah,
necessarily like put everything through the prism of, well, I don't see it that way, and et cetera, et cetera. But I just think that like money and opulence and like all of that kind of stuff, and I'm probably saying it because I don't have it, but I just think that it breeds a certain snootiness that kind of knows no bounds and does not know color. As you're telling me this story about the lake, I'm remembering from the O.J. Simpson documentary series, The Made in America, when he got arrested after the white Bronco chase. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary, but he gets arrested and they're taking him to jail to book him right after the Bronco chase. And there are all these people who like came to his house with signs like "Run OJ Run" and like all that kind of stuff. And OJ's looking around and I'm going to clean it up. because I don't want to get in trouble. But OJ's looking around and he's seeing all the people that came out to Brentwood, California to support him, right? And he's like looking around disgusted and literally, well, not literally because I'm cleaning it up, but he said something to the effect of, "What are all these black people doing here?" Like he was offended, like how dare they be in my neighborhood, and that really didn't have anything to do, with anything other than just money. Like he was
Yeah.
he was a rich athlete who traveled in certain circles. I mean, OJ's a whole other topic. Many people would say, like, he had the very famous quote, "I'm not black, I'm OJ," which is just an amazing quote. But anyway, so
Well, I mean, you probably ran a lot of those circles when you
he
were
did.
acting as well, no, you
Oh, me.
personally probably saw a lot of that kind of stuff when you were an actor, like just you got a glimpse into the rich part of LA and
Oh, I
um
mean,
a little
somewhat.
bit.
I mean, part of the reason. I mean, I still do some acting to this day, but yeah, like when I was really young and trying to meet people and things like that, I went to a few parties and things like that, like up in the Hollywood Hills and stuff like that. I couldn't suffer those people. I could not suffer the like
Yeah.
just I mean I'm from the hills of West Virginia. I mean I've got decency to me, but I just like money is not the end all be all, and I think it's great if you have money and you know what you do with it is your business, but when it kind of is how you evaluate whether the other person is a worthy human being of your time, like that's kind of
Mm.
gross to me. So I'm sure that when I'm to get back to the Blazers, I'm sure that when Rashid and all those guys started moving in, I'm sure those people did, because it's their little club, right? Regardless of
Yeah.
what color
Well,
they are, it's their little club.
so but yeah, it's oh, I'm better than everyone else. And like who are these people to just all of a sudden start moving in like there's three of them moving into my
Well, well,
neighborhood, you know?
also think about it too. Okay, I'm white. I've sold insurance like all of my adult life. Here's this 25-year-old kid coming in,
Yeah.
got a house bigger than I got. Right?
Right.
Like
Yeah. Little jealousy.
yeah, I'm sure that like
Yeah.
that stoked the fires. Okay,
So
Eric.
yeah, when when
Okay,
when you mix in the fact that they're already like that, and then you throw in the racial element of not only are these young kids coming in, but they're black and they're playing their loud music and smoking weed and all that kind of
oh yeah.
stuff. It, I there's no excuse, and I'm not trying to make excuses. It just it's not necessarily reflective of Portland in a whole, in my opinion. I don't feel like anyone had these issues with them prior to them getting in trouble and all these kind of things that happen later. Like, no one was like, oh my gosh, we don't want you here in Portland, other than this specific group of people in this specific neighborhood. So I don't think it was reflective as Portland as a whole at that time. And it's you can say, oh, this you're two white dudes talking about this. What do you know? But I mean, we can go back through it later on, but there are numerous examples of of black players that were beloved and still are beloved to this
Oh yeah.
day, that played in Portland and never had any of these issues, both before and after this era. And
I mean, there have
I
been so
wanted to,
many. There have been so many players that, like, over the years, talked about they were not thrilled to get drafted or traded to
yeah.
Portland, but then,
Well, Bonzi said he doesn't even know where Portland
well,
is.
right,
Like,
right,
what
but
the heck
but
is this?
but once they had the experience there, they ended up retiring there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was kind of a
Well,
common thread.
and this leads me to one person that wasn't even mentioned in this document, but was there during this time. Okay. He was not drafted by the Blazers. It was maybe one of the best signings the Blazers ever had.
Hmm.
And I'm surprised Bob Whitsitt didn't toot his own horn with this one,
Seriously.
as he did with everything else in this. But Brian Grant was not drafted by the Blazers. He was drafted by the Sacramento Kings. We
Yeah,
signed him later,
yeah.
and later on, Wes Matthews also he went undrafted, played in Utah, came to Portland. So it wasn't like those were our guys that we drafted or whatever. Those guys both became the heart and souls of their respective teams, and
Well, it's Buck Williams, right?
yeah,
I mean, look at those three guys. You got Buck,
mm-hmm.
you got Brian Grant, you got Wesley. Like, there's a common thread, just a moxie, a toughness, a lunch pail kind of aspect to all of those guys. Sorry to
You
say
can go
that.
back to Maurice Lucas too,
Absolutely,
like
yeah,
Mo Lucas, man, and that's another guy who stuck around in Portland, right? And so Brian Grant doesn't get talked about, but like he was here during this time. That's why I would have liked to hear more players like him talk about that, because that's a guy who's now back to he has a role within the organization. He
yeah.
still lives in Portland. He's still doing things. He's still I mean, that guy was absolutely beloved by this community, still is, always will be. And so it's just weird how you see a player like that who, if this town was just simply racist and didn't accept black people, well, why did Brian Grant thrive here during that exact same time? So a little bit of this goes back to what I talked about in the prediction thread. It's like have a little bit of accountability for you purposely trying to play your music loud and do things to piss people off.
Or
Once again,
or just not care.
yeah,
You know,
or
maybe
yeah,
not to
but
piss people off, but just like not
right.
caring.
And once again, that does not excuse racism or anything that happened to them via racism. Um, but like, I just sometimes I wish people wouldn't just think, oh, these people are obviously racist. Well, have you tried talking to them or being nicer or like, not being like, F that, I'm doing whatever I want to do, like type attitude. And that it's just, it's kind of like bringing out the worst in both sides when both sides are like, oh, I don't like these people either way.
Of course.
And it's just, it makes it a tough situation where you're never going to find common ground or be accepted or whatever. Whereas, I just gave you several examples of players, including one right in the middle of this time frame,
Yeah, this exact
exact same
group.
time
Yeah,
frame,
yeah.
that is one of the most beloved franchise players of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I always say, whenever any issues of race come up or anything like that, I remember when I was a little guy, my dad was the only white pallbearer at a black funeral, and I did not realize until it was explained to me by one of the family members of the gentleman that passed. Like they explained to me like what a real honor that is. And I mean that, like, I remember it vividly to this day. It was like just such a beautiful thing for my dad. And I just always looked at it like, at the end of the day, people are people. And if you're, it doesn't matter whether you're white or not, but like if for whatever reason you don't like black people, I think you don't know enough of them. Like you need to
Yeah,
meet more, you know. And just like same thing with white people. Like there are some crappy versions of us. Some people watching might say we are two of them. but but I just, and the one thing I will say though that I really want to get into though about the doc, I don't think the doc really leaned heavily on Portland's racist though. I think
mm,
they said, I got the feeling, tell me what you feel. I came away from it that the doc was like, let's not forget this element as something to consider. But I don't feel like they ever went really hard at it, um, as like it's a racist town. Like, for instance, when Damon told the story about growing up with just as many white friends as black friends, and he didn't think that things were racial about the Jailblazers, but he also thought that there were maybe some racist undertones. Like, I respected that nuance a
mm-hmm,
lot and like that effort, because I think a lot of times, you know, like if you do consider yourself someone who really just cares about all people and all that really matters is that you're a good person, it can be misread as dismissiveness of other people's concerns, right? And it can almost look like, well, you don't understand the black experience and so on and so forth. And it's true. I don't. I try to, I try to glean from my friends and what I read and see and things like that. I try to understand it as best I can, but the sweatshirt does say for us by us. So just because I have the sweatshirt sitting around here somewhere, um, doesn't mean that I necessarily get it. But I try my best to empathetically understand everybody. But I was really happy about the doc touching on race, but not necessarily like leaning hardcore into it. Um, in terms of what was going on at the time. But I think this is actually a good segue to talk about where the documentary got like a little out of control for me. So we talked about the compressing of timelines and things like that. At the 22-minute mark, uh, the documentary now is going to tell us about the Hummer incident. Okay. And Rashid and Damon traveling back from a Seattle game. Now, the way this is done in the documentary is right after the 2000 Western Conference Finals. Okay.
And
Now,
when was it, Rich?
it was in November of 2002. November of 2002. Okay. So we're like, what is that? 18 months later? So Damon has just on camera said, we wanted to run it back against the Lakers, but that's when everything started happening. And that isn't the timeline. And I've broken down the timeline so we can talk about the things that actually happened before that Hummer incident. By the way, little point on the Hummer incident. I remember I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and when I heard about the Hummer incident, maybe I understood, maybe I didn't. But for some reason, I always got the idea that Rashid and Damon were in the car by themselves smoking weed. Is that like how you remembered it, or did you have your head more around what the story actually was back then? Because I was taking away
I,
from it. Well, one of them was driving.
I don't remember ever thinking it was just them. I
Okay,
think it was well known here that there was someone else driving. I mean, who knows who was driving, but like,
okay,
um, but yeah, I think what they said in the story that it was a friend of theirs or something like
yeah. I mean,
that.
basically, like that guy's in the front
That
and they're
sounded
in the
right
back
to me.
seat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and that wasn't what I understood as a fan at the time. So, Eric, real quick, let's pause on the documentary for a second because the documentary wants us to believe we lost Game 7 and then this thing happened. This stop for speeding. The cops smell pot. They check the car. There's a drug dog or whatever they call it. A drug sniffing dog, and this starts all the trouble for the Jailblazers. Right? That is not the order of events. I have the order of events. Let's go through everything that happened up until that road stop. Okay? Now, before we do this, I'm going to say, is the documentary trying to lie to us? No. Did the road stop happen? Did it happen pretty much how they laid out? It seems like. I don't think the documentary ever lies to us. But I think what it does is it kind of picks storylines up and drops them in certain convenient places to tell more of a narrative story. And I think at the 22-minute mark here, they were like, we need to get to the inciting incident for the Jailblazers. We need to get to something legal so we can start to talk about this because on the timeline, there's a lot of things that happened before this roadside stop happened. So let me just go through this. So we talked about it in the last episode. The Blazers lose that game seven. They trade away Jermaine O'Neal for Dale Davis because the belief now is, well, we gotta deal with Shaq. We got to be able to handle Shaq. So they trade for Dale Davis. They also go and trade for Sean Kemp, which you also brought up in the last episode. So they trade for Sean Kemp in August of 2000. Now we're going to go to April of 2001. Okay. April 2001, Sean Kemp checks himself into rehab for cocaine. Okay. So that's like one of our first big legal issues with drugs, things like that. Like nothing
And
is
in case you didn't miss it, on last episode, there are very detailed stories of Blazer reporters going into the locker room, and Kemp and there was other players doing it too, doing cocaine in front of them in the bathroom at halftime, things like that. So it was very well known here. I mean, via rumors and stuff that this kind of stuff was going on in the locker room.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
on the
forever,
time on the timeline, I'm just going with like names that we can concretely say
yeah.
this, that kind of thing. So that 2000-2001 season is the year where famously the Blazers were in first place in the Western Conference on March the 6th. March the 6th. That's pretty late. The playoffs are the next month. The Blazers lose that game to the Vancouver Grizzlies. What was
I was there.
Well, you were there. Of course, you were there. It was Clyde Drexler night, which you'll never forget. So, Blazers lose that game and they flame out. They go 8-14 to finish the season. They go from first in the West to seventh in the West. I cannot remember such a precipitous fall from a team that was in first place in a conference, ending up seventh by the time we got to the playoffs. March 6th to seventh on the first day of the playoffs, that's unheard of. So they drop all the way, and that was also when right around that time they just brought in Rod Strickland, which was creating competition with Damon Stoudemire, and they brought in Detlef Schrempf, and a lot of the guys on the team felt like we have enough, we're deep enough. What is Bob doing? Like Bob's just bringing in as many people as possible and basically telling Dunleavy like you work it out. I'm not a chemistry major, like all that, very famously and things like that. So the Blazers lose in the first round. So now they're in the 2-7 matchup. Hey, that sounds familiar. So they're in the 2-7 matchup and they lose to the Spurs. Sorry. Horrible, horrible slip.
Whoa.
Horrible slip.
Whoa.
Horrible slip. They lose to the Los Angeles Lakers that year. 3-0. First round series, best of 5. The Damon roadside stop with Rashid has not happened. Like it has not happened. But again, the documentary presented that roadside as if it's right after the game 7 loss. So
And that's like one of the reasons why this team fell apart and all that. That's what it made it seem like.
yeah, when in reality, losing went a long way towards, if you want to say, poisoning the community against the team. Because
Mhm.
and by the way, Whitsitt got a lot of this stuff too. People were kind of sick of the rotisserie basketball of it all because it wasn't turning in results. Like
Mhm.
especially when we go and trade Jermaine O'Neal, we go and trade Brian Grant, we bring in Dale Davis and Sean Kemp, and now one of those two players is checking himself into rehab for cocaine. Like you know, it like people were just kind of sick of the tinkering. I think at least that's how I felt where I was here in Los Angeles at the time. So again, we're still in the timeline of the
Well,
roadside stop has not. Okay, go ahead.
I think it's a great time to mention. I mean, it goes in depth on what Bob was thinking that summer after the 2000 final or Western Conference Finals collapse. He said that there was no way in that instance you could remain status quo, and that he had to keep tinkering and all that kind of stuff. And that's more, I think, where people started getting led astray. Is I just mentioned Brian Grant was the heart and soul of that team. He was the glue, and you give him away for a guy doing cocaine in the locker room. Yeah, what did you think was going to happen, dude?
Yeah.
And so the fact that he wasn't retained, and I mean, we can talk about, you know, should should have paid Brian Grant or not. You know, maybe it was the right decision to let him go, especially considering, a few years later he um, can't even play anymore,
Well, I mean, you
unfortunately.
couldn't foresee that. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
but yeah, there was no way to know at the time. I mean, that guy was like an animal on the court,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think between trading one of the most popular players on your team um, for a guy who is completely checked out as a basketball player.
Washed
Like,
up.
he is
Yeah.
overweight, washed up, didn't even care
He
about
was an
playing. Like, he had
old
a couple good moments,
he was
but
an old 30.
yeah.
Yeah.
And and yeah, I understand what the point Bob was making. He kept saying it made sense what I did. It made sense to do what I did. And he made that very clear that that was his thought process.
Yeah.
Um, but when you see the result of letting one of the most beloved Blazers at that time go, and what he turned into on the court and then off the court, that just can't be understated how much that led into the fans being like, wait, why did we do this? Why is this guy messing with a team that was a few missed shots in the fourth quarter away from winning a championship, possibly? Like, and this is the move you make? Like, that guy absolutely deserves to be questioned about that. And then on top of that, like you mentioned, Jermaine O'Neal goes on to become an all-star, and everyone knew here in
Everyone knew it.
Portland.
It's not like you can
Everyone
it's
knew.
not like you could pull one of those like, well, we had no idea he got traded and he
Mhm.
popped somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, no, 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 you knew. Like, and every
They
player in
signed
that
him.
locker room knew.
Yeah, they signed him to a contract, and as part of the agreement, they were like, dude, we will give you a bigger role. And he never got that bigger role.
Yeah.
And fans, you have to ask why. Like, because he gets traded and becomes an all-star, and you heard he was the most dominant player on a team that had Rasheed Wallace and Scottie Pippen and Arvydas Sabonis and
Yeah.
all these players who are really freaking good players, and they would get dominated in practice by this kid, and you trade him away, or that's your tinkering, or that's your idea of not remaining status quo.
Yeah.
Like, man, he deserved every bit of the fans kind of turning on him after that. And then, as you're about to get into, then you add all this other stuff on top of that,
Okay.
and then him being,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, let's get right into that. So, Blazers are eliminated in April. In May of 2001, there was something going on about 200 miles up the road that doesn't involve us, Eric. It's Sonics guard slash forward Ruben Patterson. He was convicted of third degree rape for an incident that happened in September of 2000, so the previous year, where he attempted to, force himself upon his 24-year-old nanny at the time. And he pleads guilty to a lesser charge, third degree, and he's given 1 year in jail, of which he spent 15 days in jail for. So the rest of the sentence was excused away after that, and he had to register as a sex offender. It also was his restricted free agent year. So that August, Bob Whitsick goes and signs Ruben Patterson. And did so by saying, oh, well, he's the Kobe stopper and we got to stop Kobe. So this is 2 years in a row where we're just blindly obsessed with the Lakers. And don't get me wrong, it's not like that game has changed over the years. Like whatever team is dominant and winning championships, people are like, we got to go and get guys that can compete with the Warriors. We got to go and get guys that, I mean, I get that. But this is 2 summers in a row of kind of just making desperate moves, regardless of the impact on team chemistry, the community, all of that, and it's not even making well. I mean, in the case of Patterson, Patterson was a good athlete, was a good defender, all that stuff. I'm not trying to say he was worthless as a player, but once that stuff happened, the Sonics were not going to re-sign him, and I don't think anybody in the league was really crazy about signing him, except for us, of course. So now we've brought in Ruben Patterson, and now
Can,
that go ahead,
can I say a couple things
of
about
course,
that?
please,
I want to.
please,
I think now is a good time to say it.
yeah.
Absolutely disgusting comment by Bob Whitsitt saying, "Well, it didn't happen when he was in Portland." Uh,
Oh,
I,
great point.
I,
Yeah, I forgot about
I
that.
was. That was really you trade for a registered sex offender, and I think that is your excuse. Well, at least he didn't do it while a member of the Portland Trailblazers. So, and then he goes on to say he didn't act up at all in Portland.
Yeah,
What the hell are you talking about, dude? He got arrested for choking out his wife. Like,
yeah.
are you freaking kidding me,
I
Rich?
I am very
Like,
happy at the very least that the doc had the 911 call. Because I thought
yeah,
when I heard that for a second by Whitsitt, well, he didn't get in trouble while he was here. I guess to Whitsitt, getting in trouble is whether your wife goes through uh,
oh
with
my,
the accusation or not. Because Ruben Patterson's wife, she asked for that arrest to be rescinded, and they went ahead and went along with that because if you're not going to have the help of the spouse, you're not going to really get anywhere with that. But he assaulted his wife. And here's Whitsitt going, and he didn't get any trouble while he was here. I was like, oh my gosh, like yeah, those
yeah.
were two
Well,
crazy quotes.
and then just with the whole timeline thing again, Bob made it sound like this signing happened after all this stuff you're about to say.
Yes,
So he had this attitude like, well, we already had a bunch of troublemakers. What's one more? Add to the mix. And
right,
that, as you're about to point out, that wasn't the case. Like
right.
that's not how things happen.
It was
So
Kemp.
that pissed me off.
It was Kemp, and then it was Patterson.
Yeah,
Like it was Kemp.
and then
2 Augusts, August of
yeah,
2000, and then August of 2001. And remember, we're not to the Hummer incident yet. I'll,
no,
I'll, I'll get
and
to
then
it.
the other thing is they kind of touched upon the Zach Randolph sucker punching him in practice and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I still hear stories about how crazy of a guy Ruben Patterson was and how you did not mess with him. He
Oh,
would
that's what
like
I heard. Yeah.
there was guns involved, and he would come to your house and he would hunt you down, and that's why Zach Randolph had to hide out in someone else's house while he cooled down.
I mean,
Um,
Ruben, they asked Ruben what it was like to play with Zach, and he was like, "Oh, I mean, I got to do what I got to do, but I want to kill him."
yeah, and all I needed to know was the three guys, Bonzi, Sheed, and Damon's reaction when they started talking about Ruben. They hated that guy, and
Yeah,
they even mentioned how like he just was not. That was like part of ruining the chemistry or whatever. I mean, we can argue the chemistry was not there before Ruben Patterson, which is a valid argument, I think. But
yeah,
those guys wanted nothing to do with him on the team either,
yeah.
and it's kind of like the whole, when like a sex offender or a child abuser or something gets put in a jail, and
Oh,
the inmates take it upon themselves to
extract
produce some
justice. Yeah.
justice. Yes,
Well, also
it kind of
you got to think about this too. For guys like Rashid that was married at a young age, they got to go home and hear like this is who your teammate is, et cetera, et cetera. Like I mean,
yeah,
it just trickles down to like real life stuff that these guys
Mhm.
have to deal with, and they already have way too much to deal with. Like you're just adding one extra element to it. I was it the was it the call? Was it the 911 call when he assaulted his wife that Whitsitt angrily said, I've got the quote here somewhere, but the quote was like, I'm I'm frustrated that we even have an incident that we have to talk about. That
Oh, right.
upsets me more than anything else. And I'm just sitting there thinking, really, like Ruben's hands around his wife's throat, not like the number one thing that really upsets you. So it just kind of seemed like Whitsitt was getting humiliated by some of these moves, and then he was getting ticked off for the actions of people that he himself brought on the team, and not sight unseen. Like he knew that Ruben had just pled guilty to this thing. He knew the charging document. Like it just
Well,
it really destroyed the chemistry of the team.
and then he has the attitude, and still to this day with this documentary, that, oh, well, as long as if I would have just produced a winner, that's what the
Uh,
fans really wanted, right? Like,
I
no,
mean,
we didn't want to root for a sex offender, dude. Like, I'm sorry, but we did not want you to trade or sign for a sex offender on the team. Like,
yeah.
I don't know how clear it can be. It has nothing to do with basketball knowledge or whatever. That sucks. And the same kind of thing sort of happened when Chauncey was hired, only that wasn't like a proven thing. So there was like this
And
gray area, but
many years removed, to be fair, and
yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
But a lot of people, and I mean, he had this like sparkling reputation outside of that one incident, and now that's all tarnished. But it's crazy how he's booking those
Oh, it's nuts,
two
right?
things.
God, wow.
But anyways, yeah, it's just like, no, because he made it sound like, oh, he was. You fans don't know what you want. I know what you really want. You want this nanny raper,
I'm
like
I'm building a winner here. Yeah.
yeah.
So now we get into something in the timeline that's going to be a little shocking, Eric. Uh, so let's move to February 23rd, 2002. That day is important because on that day, police respond to an alarm that went off at Damon Stoudemire's house. Now,
Wait, we're not to the Hummer incident yet,
no,
Rich?
no Hummer yet.
Wait, no,
No,
I
no,
swear in the documentary the
no,
Hummer was first.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. This is one of the more egregious things that the documentary did do. Because it's presented in the documentary, the Hummer incident, and then Damon goes home one day and somebody's gone
Mm.
through his house, and then you find out the police responded to an alarm there, and they went through his stuff and found marijuana. It looks like the cops have it out for Damon Stoudemire based off the Hummer incident, right? Now the documentary doesn't tell you that. They don't give dates on when these things happen. It's just the way that the events are presented to you to make you just assume that we're in a linear storytelling of this story. But that's not what happened. What happened was Damon's home had an alarm go off, and the cops responded, and they said, I'll say said, because who knows, it's an NBA player, right? In that area, in the lake where everybody has the problem with the young, rich black players living. So, like, would I guarantee you that there definitely was an ajar door? I don't. I mean, would I put it past somebody to be like, oh look, the door's ajar, let's go in? Like, could totally see that happening. But that house, do you know how many false alarms that house had on it for a 6 year window before that day that they went through the house? Do you know how many times there was a false alarm?
I remember it happening several times, but I don't remember what the exact number is.
So now, with this number, I wasn't able to confirm before we filmed exactly how many years Damon owned the home because obviously he got traded to Portland in 98. Maybe he owned a property as an investment thing, like during his rookie year in Toronto, or what's more likely, he came to the team and then bought a home there. Maybe when he first got there, maybe around 2000 or whatnot. But that home from 96 to 2002, so a 6 year window, had 32 false alarms. Okay? 32.
Seems like a
Damon
lot.
Damon was cited for 7 of them. Okay. So where the cops actually cited him, like, hey, this is a false alarm. We're having to come out here. Now, Damon ended up beating this. Like so long story short, for those who don't know, the cops go into the house and they end up finding 1 pound of marijuana in the house. Damon gets in trouble for felony possession of marijuana. People are wondering, is he dealing it? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Ruins Damon's reputation. And again, the Hummer incident has not
Or
happened
the
yet.
Hummer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before the Hummer. So it ended up getting thrown out of court because that area of Portland, the rate was 99% of all burglar alarms that went off around the lake were false alarms. So this was, I don't know what the deal was with the ADT services there or whatnot, but it's just a lot of false
Seems like
alarms.
something you should probably correct after
Yeah,
6 years of it going off.
probably.
But
And it wasn't just Damon's home, it was other people's homes, that kind of thing. However, damage is done, right? So,
I mean, they did rule that they unconstitutionally went
yeah,
in the
it's an
house
illegal
to search
search.
it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. So he beats the charge. He doesn't get in trouble for felony possession of the marijuana because they never should have found the marijuana. However, as we all know he had the marijuana, right? Um,
It,
Go ahead.
I just want to be clear. Um, at the time, okay. Um, you said this was 2002.
Yes, February 2002.
Okay. All right. I I had an incident with the police in 2003, not Lake Oswego, but in Portland.
Okay.
And I just want to say at the time, it was a much different time where most people just blindly believed anything a police officer would say or do. And nowadays, of course, thankfully, there's video evidence in some cases of
Body
police
cams. Yeah,
doing wrong and things like that. They still get away with a lot, but there is absolutely a history in this area, as there are a lot of areas of um, people in uniform, lying or out to get someone. So it absolutely could have been the case that Damon Stoudemire was targeted because of his skin color,
sure.
and especially if they knew he enjoyed smoking weed, which is illegal. So it definitely, I don't want
I don't
to,
rule that out. I don't rule
I
that
don't
out
want to
at
make it
all.
seem like we're pro what the police did or whatever,
Not at all.
because they didn't, obviously, based on the judge's ruling, they shouldn't have searched his house at all. But
But that's why
it just,
I said damage done, right? Like in the eyes of the
yeah.
law, that search should have never happened, so everything returns back to the way it was
Well,
before the search, but it can't.
it's like when a national championship gets vacated in like college
Like Reggie
sports. It's
Bush.
like
Right.
everyone watched the freaking game. Like
The game
we know
happened.
Reggie
Like I
Bush won the
saw it.
Heisman that
Right.
year. Just because you took away his trophy doesn't mean we don't think he ever played a college football game or something.
Right.
But I just want to make it clear, it is more than plausible to think that a rich white area could have some police officers of that area who looked out for the other rich white people in that area and purposely try to get someone that the rest of that area didn't like in trouble so that they would not be in that area anymore, so that they'd be in jail. Like I could totally see a
Oh,
scenario where these guys were justified in feeling like they were targeted and all that stuff. um, I would almost lean towards that was very likely the case
well, also think
back
about it like this too. So they've been called to his home multiple times because of false alarms. So,
then. Yeah,
you know, who's to say that one of these cops is like, man, let's just break in and like see if he's got something.
yeah.
Like could totally
Well,
see that happen. So by the way, I think you need to make sure that you close the loop on your allusion to your story from 2003 because you were like, I had something happen. So I mean, you don't have to go into like a ton of detail, but people are going to be like, wait, what exactly are you referring to? So you're saying that some
I mean,
like a cop mistreated you, right?
I mean, we don't have time to go into it, but basically, I witnessed a cop do something, and later on, that same cop happened to see me and proceeded to uh, bash my face into a brick wall and nearly kill me or whatever. And yeah, so all because I witnessed something he did, and yeah. Um,
And
it's a crazy story.
yeah, yeah, it
I
is.
thought I had told you about
No,
it,
you
but
had told
yeah,
me. You had told me, but also, I mean, come on, who you telling?
yeah,
Right? Like I'm the
right.
perfect person to tell a secret to, because I'm gonna forget it. But no, but I mean, it kind of goes back to the thing that we were talking about with the lake, right? Like it's the circle the wagons, it's the you know power corrupts, influence corrupts, money corrupts, like just all of that stuff,
Mhm.
right? So okay, the Hummer incident still hasn't happened yet. Damon has just had this happen to his home. We're in February of 2002. Okay, the Blazers are not having a great season, not having a terrible season, but they end that season 49-33. Now, the season before 2001, when they flamed out at the end of the regular season, they finished 50-32. So now this season, one game worse, 49-33. It wasn't this falling apart at the end of the regular season the way it was the year before. But they go into the playoffs as a 6 seed. And who do they run into in the playoffs again? Oh, it's the Lakers again. And they end up losing to the Lakers in another sweep. So now we've lost 3 years in a row to the Lakers, and the last 2 years in sweeps.
And then we lost to the champion all 3 years.
Yeah, that's true. Well, same difference, right? Like lost to the champs every year. So again, the documentary, when you watch it, is it jumps around to where it's showing a lot of these legal troubles, and then all of a sudden it'll say 2000-2001 season, and it's like, hang on, you were just telling us about some legal trouble in 2002. You cannot then pivot to the.
I mean, they didn't say what time that
They
was.
never did, and that's what they very sneakily. They never give you dates of when the arrests happen and things like that because they're telling a story, right? And they want to make it like they really wanted to make it like the fan base got down on them because of all the legal stuff. And that is
And
true.
that's what made him play bad.
Right. And what happened, and I remember this as a fan, like we were getting frustrated by the the unrealized potential of this team. We had seen it in 99 2000. Did it hurt like hell that they didn't win the title? Absolutely. But we felt like they at least achieved like in the stratosphere of what their potential was, right? I mean, making it to game 7 of the Western Conference Finals and having a 15-point lead, like, that's pretty much where you would want them to be. Obviously, they didn't hang on to that. But flaming out in the first round after having the best record in the Western Conference in March the next year, and then losing to the Lakers in the first round again and getting swept both of those years, And this is after making moves where you're letting go of quality people, quality young talent. You're letting go of Brian Grant. You're letting go of Jermaine O'Neal. You're bringing in Sean Kemp, who then has to go off to rehab for cocaine. And I'm not bashing him like he's a scumbag for having a cocaine problem. It's terrible. He actually looked pretty good in the documentary. I hope he's healthy and happy. I mean, especially for what age he would be around this time. So Sean Kemp looked pretty good. So I'm not ripping him for having a drug problem, but I'm just saying Witsit bringing him in after getting rid of somebody like Brian Grant, and then we're not. It's one thing to make moves for players that have an asterisk, or this guy's been in a little bit of trouble, or this guy's had some problems with authority, but I think, like Witsit was talking about, can I shine this turd up and turn it into something great? He didn't say turd, but you know, like like
basically.
can he spin gold out of this straw, right? And when we aren't getting the results of this rotisserie basketball, this over tinkering. It's like, dude, the bonsai trees are naked. Like you just stop cutting. Like, for the love of God, like, just please. And so I think, again, I'm hundreds of miles away in Los Angeles at this time, but I was feeling, and this is when, like, online is getting started and you can go to forums and things like that. Like, you're going in, hey, age, sex, location, what do you think about the Blazers? Like, back in the days of chat. But like, I felt like a lot of the frustration, it it wasn't drug related. It was because they were losing, and because they weren't reaching their full potential. And some of the things that were happening were not just the kind of players that we were losing and bringing in, but then you're bringing in the character issues. You're bringing in the drug issues, and we're losing. We're not winning. So I felt like, the team turning on the players, like, a lot of that stuff was happening because they were not achieving what they could have achieved on the court. I mean, that I just feel like that's a no-brainer, but am I off base there?
I do I do think the drugs were a big deal.
But
Um,
who was that at that point? You had Damon's issue
yeah.
with his house, and you had Sean. But who
Mhm.
else is there by the end of the playoffs in 2002?
I mean, you heard rumors about
Well, okay,
people,
okay.
but
I'm just
yeah,
dealing. I'm
but
dealing
yeah,
in things we can prove.
legally, you are correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
not saying it's right for people to feel that way. I'm just saying, like, a lot of people did. If you would have said back then, you know, here's these rich black athletes coming in doing the marijuana,
the
like
weed.
a lot of people would have had an issue with that most likely. And like, once again, I'm not saying that's right of them to feel that way, especially the way it's viewed now. But back then, I think it was common for people to have issues with that.
Yeah. See, I mean, being so far away, and the internet not being what it is today, I mean, I wasn't able to get that kind of scuttlebutt. Like, I
Mhm.
wasn't really able to hear that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to hear you lay it out like that.
I mean, a lot of
So,
people thought it was cool too. So, to be fair,
um,
they're
okay.
just like
So,
me.
so Eric, now in the timeline, guess where we are?
The Hummer?
It's the Hummer incident. The Hummer incident. Okay, so it's a Thursday night. The Blazers play at Seattle. By the way, I should also point out we now have a new head coach. Okay, and actually, I think we had a new head coach already for 1 year. So Mo Cheeks is the coach at the time, who allows Bonzi and Rashid to just drive home from Seattle. So Like,
Damon and Rashid.
oh, what? Who did I say?
You said Bonzi.
Bonzi. I'm sorry. Well, it's Bonzi. See,
Yeah,
people trying to get
Bonzi's on
you.
the bus.
People trying to get you in trouble.
Yeah,
So yes, thank you. So I'm starting to, my brain is starting to, it's getting a
that's
little
right.
tough for me. So um yeah, so Damon and Rashid, they have the incident with the Hummer. It is a very funny story that they are on the side of the road and then the team bus like comes by, slows down. They're like, "Is that a yellow Hummer?" That's a very funny story.
I thought it was weird, one, that they took a bus. I mean, I kind of remember that, but like, um, I also remember them having a team plane for a lot of this time, and so even to Seattle, I thought it was weird that they bust up there, and then
Yeah, seriously.
also, yeah, I mean, I don't really have an issue with letting them go home separate, but
No, I
it
don't
does seem
either.
kind of weird that they did go separate. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Look, Mo Cheeks is not responsible for them getting pulled over and having marijuana in the car. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm just trying to
no.
say Mo Cheeks was a little bit more of a player's coach, little less of a disciplinarian of somebody like Mike Dunleavy, certainly. Um, so that arrest, that roadside stop, and then the ticket for speeding, but obviously the word that they had marijuana in the car and all of that comes out. So,
Well, did they though?
huh?
Did they have marijuana in the
Well, I
car?
mean, as they talked about it, they smoked it all. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that they told the cop, "Oh no, there's no marijuana. We smoked it all." Um, but that stop happens late at night on Thursday, November the 21st, into the evening, into the next day, which is early in the morning, Friday morning, right? Because you pass over into midnight. The reason I'm so stuck on the date is November 25th, 2002 is a Monday. You know what happens that Monday, Eric?
What?
That is when Reuben Patterson is arrested for
Ugh,
attempting to choke his wife.
4 days
So,
later.
so yes, exactly. So
Three and a half.
the way that news moved back then was not at the crazy news cycle the way things are today. So you've got a lot of people probably kind of coming up to speed on what happened with Rashid and Damon, maybe over the weekend or maybe Monday morning once
The
they
Sunday
start.
paper is big,
Sunday
so
paper's
maybe the
big,
Sunday paper.
but then now you got the Monday radio shows talking about what happened the previous weekend, that kind of thing. Uh, and then you get this news of Reuben Patterson. So you've just gone through a devastating Game 7 in 2000. You flamed out in 2001 and lost to the Lakers in a sweep in 2001.
And
2002,
2000.
well, yeah. In 2002, you lose in a sweep to the Lakers after a lackluster regular season, and you traded away some popular players for some questionable players. And one of the questionable players has now just tried to choke his wife. And within
Alleged.
days of two of your star players uh, getting getting pulled over for speeding, but then they're finding marijuana in the car. This was more of a like what is happening with this team, an exasperation, and not fans are just sitting around waiting for the guys to do something wrong so they can complain about it. Like there was already
Yeah.
an angst with the fan base that some of it was player related and some of it was management related. Um, and then some of it is just like frustration and discontentment. We don't like losing to the Lakers. Like, when the Lakers win, it sucks. Like all of that. So I just really think that those events happening within days of each other really like puts a spotlight on
And
the team.
and if you didn't know the timeline, and you just watched the documentary, that seemed like those were years apart and
Yeah.
completely like different teams. And
Well,
um,
the way they show it is the Hummer incident happens, and then Dame's house. I said Dame. Damien's house is broken into by the
rated,
cops,
yeah.
and then they flame out to the Lakers in 2001. Like
Mhm.
that's and then they go and get Ruben Patterson and so on and so forth. So like the timelines are just all smushed together. And I understand why they did it, because that Hummer story, the imagery is very vivid. It's a yellow Hummer on the side of the road. The team bus passes by. Like, you could just place yourself there. Like you can see it, right? And it's also drugs. It's the inciting incident. Two of our star players. Like, from the filmmaker's standpoint, they were like, we need to get to this story quickly. But they did it in such a way that you come away from it thinking these two guys got pulled over and they were smoking marijuana, and the whole community just exploded in being pissed off about it.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
not what happened.
see, I'm worried that that's how the players feel like it went down, though. It seems to me like that's, well, you talked about revisionist history, like it feels like as time goes on, they're like, yeah, yeah, that's the way it happened, like because honestly, with the Hummer incident, especially Rashid, like it seemed like he thought it was not a big deal, and that like, I mean, what do you mean? I got charged with possession. I smoked it before they. How can you charge me with possession when I had already smoked it or whatever?
Right, right.
And but like no, there's. I mean, he said multiple times in this documentary how much he liked smoking weed and he was going to smoke it or whatever, and um, but like no, not once was it like, yeah, I mean, it was illegal at the time. I probably shouldn't have been so careless about it, or smoking it on the road, or
Yeah.
I mean, more than likely the driver was also partaking or whatever. But like once again, they just made it seem like it wasn't a big deal, and in hindsight, weed wasn't a big deal. But I mean, what are you doing doing something illegal in a bright yellow Hummer, um, speeding down the road
I,
too?
I
It's
do
like
I do like the fact, though, in that storytelling, when they're like,
they're trying to tell him to slow down.
yeah, they're telling the guy, and I love how Rashid's like, "Hey, man, slow down. It's 11:30 at night." Like in a yellow
Yeah,
Hummer. Like
yeah.
okay, he had the wherewithal. Like it's not like Rashid was checked out. Like he got it. That's when. But by the way, where was seeing Charlie Murphy and the Chappelle Show in this documentary on your bingo card? Like, did that catch you off guard? That made me laugh.
That was pretty funny. Yeah,
That
that
was
was a
pretty
good
funny.
inclusion.
And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
liked how Rashid's wife hated it, didn't like it, and he was like,
She
"Oh, come
thought it was
on, this is
funny.
really funny." So
Mama, I made it.
yeah, Mama, I finally, here he is making millions of dollars in the NBA, and he's like, "I finally made it because I'm on the Chappelle Show." That was hilarious. Then we get into, I touched on this a little before, but Damon's distinction between racist and racial undertones, which I thought was a really responsible distinction that he went into,
Mhm,
and I thought that was really cool. Immediately after this is when the documentary goes into the story of the search of Damon's home. So
mhm,
this is where they choose to show it. So now it fades in that we are in the doc fades the graphic of 2001 season. So again, now the doc is way behind. Like we've already talked about the Hummer incident, which is in November of 2002. We've now talked about Damon's house getting raided by the cops illegally, and that was in February of 2002. But the doc wants to, in a linear fashion, tell us now we come to the 2000-2001 season. It was just, it was so infuriating the way that they were jumping around with it, because they're making it seem like these couple of seasons after the Western Conference Finals loss, that the players, and I think you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but the players are not only trying to beat the Lakers, but they're also dealing with all of this crap on them about drugs and all of that. And they weren't going through that. They weren't going through that in the 2001, the 2000-2001 season, with the exception of Sean Kemp. And they weren't going through it in the 2001-2002 season until we get to late February and Damon's home being broken into. But there were no drug issues. So like the fan base was down on Bob Whitsitt at that time, I feel, for getting rid of the guys that we talked about, for bringing in the guys that we talked about. But it's not like the rest of the guys. It's not like Sheed and Bonzi and Damon were having this uphill battle of fans being down on them in particular for perceived transgressions against the community or anything like that. It was just frustration with, why isn't this team winning at a higher clip? So again, I mean, this
Oh,
is something that the documentary did a lot. Go ahead.
let me just insert this here. I mentioned this last stream
Hmm.
when we talked about what we consider the timeline of the Jailblazers era. And I have to mention that J.R. Ryder, when he was here, Rasheed Wallace was on that team with J.R. Ryder. A lot of these guys were on the team. Did get busted for, I think he got busted a couple times, but one in particular is when he was on the side of the road smoking out of a soda can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a drug related incident from recent memory for Blazers lore and
But
stuff.
that always seemed like part of the reason that he was shipped out for Steve Smith.
Yeah, of course.
I
And
mean,
Steve Smith was,
was a
yeah,
better player.
much
Um,
and better person.
well, yeah. So now the documentary is starting to focus a little bit more on Whitsitt. So we start getting more into Whitsitt tinkering a little too much, and then the team turning over. Now they mention Sean Kemp for the first time. Remember, in the real life timeline, where like the Hummer incident happened and all that, like Kemp is already on the team. The documentary is now telling us that Kemp, now here is where they're going to drop Kemp into the story. So they talk about trading for Sean Kemp, and then we start getting into Sheed's technicals. Okay, and
Well, they before they get into Sheed's technicals, didn't they briefly touch on the Bonzi comments?
you've got the guys probably having conversations amongst each other because they're probably starting to hear a lot of noise. There's a lot of
Yeah.
noise from a fan base that is not happy with Whitsitt, not happy with the team in terms of not winning at a higher clip. So I'm sure the conversation amongst themselves was, man, screw it. Like block all that out. Like
Mhm.
like forget what people are saying right now. Like we got to just take care of us. That wasn't, and I'm sure that's the sentiment. And behind closed doors, I'm sure it was like a lot stronger than that. But Bonzi essentially goes and says that out loud. Like basically said, like, we don't really care what the fans say. And, because at the end of the day, they're always going to come up to us and ask us for autographs. And that's why we're NBA players and they're fans. And like, it was such a devastating comment, not just for Bonzi ultimately in his career, but for us as fans. We talked about this in the last episode, that this really hurt. I mean, especially when the reason, at least until like the arrest happened, the Hummer incident and things like that, the main reason that we're frustrated is because we believe in you guys. Like we see your
Mhm.
talent and we we feel like you can do more with what you have, and we just want to see that. And then for Bonzi to basically turn around, and also look, Bonzi's saying what I'm sure 90 95% of NBA players probably think. And that may be a low number, but and we know they think that, like, it's this agreement that we've made. But it's a little, but don't tell us, like, just don't rub our nose in it. We get it. Like, we're fans. Like, the core word of fanatic is fan. Like, totally get it. But Bonzi saying the quiet part out loud just hurt. I mean, it really hurt a lot. And coming off the heels of what had just happened, like you just said, with Damon and Sheed, and then Ruben with the incident with his wife, I'm sure it was really hot and a real pressure cooker around there. And I'm sure that they did say, "Hey, screw this. We got to worry about ourselves." So
Such ill time.
just a really bad time to accept the interview with Sports Illustrated if you're Bonzi. And yeah, that was kind of a bummer for that time. Um, let's. Oh, and by the way, I think at that point in time, I think the Blazers were like 9-8 when Bonzi was interviewed for that. So, like, there's a lot of different things going on there, just in terms of like mediocre. The team is not achieving well, and then you've got all these incidents and things like that. Um, so let's move on to then the doc tells us that we're now going to the 2001 playoffs. Again, we're just like the doc is on drugs at this point. Like, the doc is high at this point. So they
Cause
they
that.
yeah, so they show us that we lose to the Lakers again, not in the proper timeline of when that happened. But now the doc is going to move into the enigma of Rasheed Wallace. And I really want to talk to you about this. What do you think of that part of the doc? And when we start talking about the Jeffrey Arnold article, which was in December of now 2003. So now it's just talked about the playoffs of 2001. We lost to the Lakers. And now we've got the Jeffrey Arnold article in December of 2003. So a
Yeah.
full 2.5 years later. Okay. So, first off, you lived there. This article was kind of a bombshell article. What was it like at the time? And kind of let me know what your thoughts were about that.
It was just more just separation of a fan base that for the first 30 plus years of its existence had been considered one of the best fan bases in terms of supporting their teams, to this separation where the players on the current team just don't get it. Like they
Mm-hmm.
don't understand the fans. They don't think we understand them, which is fine for them to feel that way. Probably understandable in a lot of cases, but um, she's such an interesting person. Like, seeing like parts of that Matt Barnes conversation
Mm-hmm.
and just some of the stories he tells, like, he's funny, he's likable, like when he's telling stories, like he's got a personality. But then he makes it seem like he doesn't, and he doesn't want any part of that in other instances. And I don't know, it just, I feel like a lot of people think it's cool to like Rasheed Wallace, and that is fine. And I mean, he was an amazing player, and all that stuff. I just, and I mean, this leads into something we'll talk about later, but to me, it felt like she just didn't. Not only did he think people were out to get him or didn't understand him, but he like in a way needed that like to justify himself,
Hmm.
like his actions to himself. And that article just kind of cemented that to me, like this guy is, instead of being someone like, man, I cost my team a game because of my technical foul or something like that, it was, nah, people just don't get me and I'm just going to do whatever I want type attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that ties both of the main things we've talked about, the losing and the off court incidents. And this is might be unfair to Sheed, but it just kind of encapsulated that all into this guy is costing his team games or making it harder for his team to win games with getting all these technicals. And then at the same time, doesn't care and wants to blame the fans. And they're not like, so like he doesn't care about winning because but he says he wants to win a championship and that was his only goal at another part in this documentary. But like, if that was truly your goal, like why couldn't you see that you're costing your team games and that it's just ridiculous behavior on the court to get 40 technicals in a year or whatever it was, and 38 one year, and then he breathed it the next year. And so to me, it's like, okay, you're doing stuff on the court that's like a losing thing. So fans are turning on you because you're costing your team games. And then also now you have these, you're telling you don't give a crap about any of us and you're just going to do whatever you want to do because you're Rasheed Wallace. And so like, I don't know. It just, once again, it was just like the wrong message to send across. And I know he doesn't give an F. Like that was very, very clear. He doesn't care. He does not
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's totally his right to feel that way. Like I'm not going to tell another man how they should feel about any situation, especially one that's a million times different background than you or I.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it was like the final thing. Like, man, this team just like fans still wanted to believe that things were going to turn around and this was just a blip on the radar and eventually Ruben Patterson wouldn't be on the team anymore and we can start rooting for the guys again. But that was just kind of like, you know what, this team, like why are we even rooting for these guys? Like
Well,
what is the
also,
point?
well, also, again, we've got conflicting timelines here. In the real life timeline, Bob Whitsitt is gone.
Yeah.
By this time of this interview with Jeffrey Arnold, Whitsitt is gone, and John Nash and Steve Patterson, no relation, is they are in charge, and they basically have come in, and Rasheed is going to be the avatar of this era, and he's going to be the person that's traded away as kind of the signal to the fans: we hear you, we love you, or we're going to try and do things differently. This mercenary style rotisserie fantasy basketball management style is not what we're going to do anymore. But again, the doc, it's portraying this period of time as when Rasheed did that interview, like Whitsitt is still the general manager. As a matter of fact, they go right out of that interview that everybody got upset about. David Stern was like, some of these comments are reprehensible because like they left in like a lot of curse words and things like that that she'd said, that she did not anticipate the guy leaving in, but he also said, I want to do a story on you, run the recorder and print everything you say. So I don't quite understand necessarily why Rashid would have thought anything different. But the doc then glosses over the fact that we lost in the playoffs in 2003 in a 7 game series to the Dallas
Yeah.
Mavericks, in which we were down 3-0, and then had a really nice, valiant comeback to force a game 7, have a lead in a game 7. Like you would have thought that they might have played around with that game 7 narrative. Here we are back again in a game 7, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't do that. They made it very much like, oh, here's another first round flame out. Like, they really didn't give that kind of the oxygen that I felt like they should have. And then
And
we,
that was Damon Bonzi, like, or not Damon, Sheed and Bonzi, like, spearheaded that comeback
well,
from
and
down
Zach
oh
Randolph
3. Yeah.
too. That was
Yeah,
kind of
Zach
Zach
Randolph.
Randolph's
Yep.
coming out party, right?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
so,
So we had,
so then we get one of my favorite things ever, which is both teams played hard.
yeah.
Okay. And like the way it was explained to us through Witsit and Rashid, and the fact that Witsit was like, hey, you could just, if they ask you about anything that's going on off the court, you could just say both teams played hard. There's an element to the way that Witsit talked about it that I almost look at it like a little bit of revisionist history, and narcissistically Witsit wants to own a part of this very famous,
Yeah.
like I gave him the suggestion of say both teams played hard, whereas
Yeah, I could control him.
Rashid is just doing a media appearance after going down 3-0 to the
Mm.
Mavs. And that's when he did the both teams played hard, my man. God bless and good night. Like it was just amazing. And by the way, going back to Rashid, so you gave your opinion about Rashid. I'll give you a hot take about Rashid. This is going to sound crazy, okay? In a different world, different set of circumstances, if things had broke a little differently, she could have owned the city of Portland, Oregon. He's so
100%.
he's so different and funny and quirky to the point that if he would have there's a pathway out there where this relationship with the media doesn't happen, and the team wins in 2000, and he's beloved, and he doesn't feel as scrutinized. The Lakers break up. The team isn't trading away Brian Grant and Jeremy O'Neal because Jermaine O'Neal. See what's happening to my brain? I'm just becoming mushhead right now. But you don't you don't trade those guys away, and maybe they win a couple titles in a row. And just imagine like how things would be different. And I just like he could have been as crazy as it sounds. I know it's crazy, but he's such an enigma. He could have been like a modern day Bill Walton in a different set of circumstances
Absolutely.
with the quirkiness and stuff like that. He really could have been. And I he reminds me of, there was a girl that I dated one time who, I mean, analogies, right? There's a girl that I dated one time. She was very physically attractive, but she had this.
So to remind you of Rasheed Wallace?
Yes, yes, and this will make
Okay.
sense, I hope. She was very tall as well, um, but like 5'11". But she was tall and blonde and just like really really beautiful, and she had this thing in her head that, oh, people don't like me because of these things, these physical things. She was like, other women are jealous, and they treat me this way. And then I would see her interact with those people, but she went into those interactions with attitude, right? Like she's like, they're not going to like me. And then I would see them just not like her for how she was being, you know, not for who she was, not for her immutable characteristics that, that why, oh, the burden of the beautiful blonde. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like you, it's like you never pay for anything at the mechanic. Like I just so sorry for the burden that you have to live your life by. But she went into she lived she had the world by the tail, but she lived her life like everybody was out to get her. And this this dislike that she told herself other people had for her, she created a lot of it. And so it was a self-fulfilling prophecy for her.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, that and many other reasons were part of the reason why I walked away from that relationship. But it was just sad. It was just sad because it's like, man, you have no idea how you've got the world in the palm of your hand. And when I look at Rasheed Wallace, like, we're not even talking about him as a player, but look at his skill set as a player, which we've celebrated many times. Like, he had the world by the tail in terms of talent, in terms of his feel for the game, in terms of, like, everybody who was a teammate seemed to love him. He's funny, he's quirky, he like he just like I now I also don't think he feels sorry for himself or feels sorry for his life. He doesn't feel sorry for how his life turned out or anything like that. But I just look at his time in Portland and I'm bummed that he looks at it like those people didn't care for me, F those people, et cetera, because I look at it like, oh man, like it didn't have to be that way. And you actually, like, very easily could have had the town in the palm of your hand.
Oh, 100% true. Yeah. I mean, everyone loved the trade.
I
I
remember,
mean,
I remember being over the moon about it. I couldn't believe it.
Bob Whitsitt might think us fans were dumb at the time, but like we recognized a great trade when we got it. This is a it was completely different. I mean, going back or going forward to the Denny trade of a few years ago, like half the fan base didn't know who Denny was. Tamani Kamara as well. Like we traded for some players that ended up being really good.
Again,
That wasn't
another Washington Wizard.
that wasn't the case here. I mean, this guy, like you said, went to North Carolina, played with Vince Carter. Everyone knew him coming out in that draft. He went top 5.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, had a pretty good rookie year. Just like you said, they had Juwan Howard and Chris Webber and chose those two over him. And so like everyone was excited about him coming here. And it leads into people understood after watching him play for a while that he wasn't necessarily tapping into everything he possibly could. And that might have rubbed people the wrong way. But certainly, even despite that, there were so many people that were really big fans of Rasheed Wallace and wanted to embrace him. And it's tough when, and once again, I'm not blaming him for thinking this way. It's certainly his right as a black man to not want the opinions or the acceptance of a white person.
Sure, of course.
That's certainly his right. But if he was just a little bit more like or a little bit less standoffish towards anyone who was white, yeah, he would still be thought of as one of the best trailblazers of all time. He'd be right up there with a lot of those guys. And I mean, he still is despite all this. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, it could have been a lot different. I kind of so when you were talking or telling that story, which was a pretty good analogy, I was thinking about Are you familiar with Lauryn Hill, the singer?
Yeah.
So she has this like incredible album, and I think she won a bunch of Grammys and stuff for it, and just incredibly talented singer and all that stuff. And then she made some comment about not caring if white people listen to her or buy her albums or whatever.
Okay.
And and honestly, like probably
Was it now? Wait.
unfairly,
Was it? She doesn't care, or she doesn't want them to, or it just she can
I
take it or
forget
leave
the
it.
exact
Okay.
quote.
Okay.
Oh no, she said she would. Her exact quote was that she would rather have her kids starve than have white people buy her albums. Okay,
Okay.
so
That's very different.
yeah, yeah, so yeah, a little worse than I thought, but um,
Or awesome. I mean, kind of an awesome quote.
so once again, like we're two white guys having this racial conversation,
Yeah.
which can be a
Sure.
little uncomfortable, but
It's
um,
about the whitest thing we could do, right? Is talk about
right.
race.
So I understand, like, we don't know what it's like to be in their shoes, and
Sure.
I cannot emphasize this enough. I am not trying to tell them that they were in the wrong and that they shouldn't have felt that way, but as a white person, it does suck sometimes when um, you're just automatically thrown into that bucket like you'll never understand me or root for me because I'm black or whatever.
Right.
Bullcrap. I wanted to root for you. I've rooted for like, majority of my favorite players in all sports have been um black players. So like I don't know. Like
Well, they would
but at
have
the
to
same
be.
time I understand um like uh from their perspective, their experiences and stuff like that led to them feeling that way, and that's fine. And I'm not saying they have to accept us. And once again, you know, it's probably if it feels almost like
I
I
mean,
feel bad
I
even
mean,
saying like, "Oh, you judged me because I'm white," like because they have to deal with a million times worse than us
well,
as white
people,
people. Like
well,
we're
and
white.
people, they could turn right around easily and say, we get judged for being black too. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
You like going into a
sure.
store and having someone like stare you down. I Rich, I have this Walmart by my house, and they have a like a greeter type person at the door who
Hmm.
he'll check receipts of everyone, right?
Oh,
And there's a lot of Hispanic and some black people that shop there as
hmm.
well, like any store. And dude will check every one of their receipts, right?
And you get the pass through.
All roll out. He's just like, "You're good," like every time, it never fails, right? And
It's so
it's
ridiculous.
so like I get it. Like it's though I can't imagine every time I leave the house having something like that happen. So like I'm not trying to downplay this or say that like that's the same thing back and forth. I'm just trying to say in this particular instance, I feel like she never wanted to believe or trust in or even interact with anyone that wasn't, and that might have been fair for him to do, or stuff happened to him. You mentioned this last video we did about how you feel like some of the white reporters were have some sort of blame in this particular instance of kind of making him standoffish towards the media just by the way he was portrayed and the way they talked to him.
Hmm.
John Canzano, who was in this documentary, uh, he famously brought urine tests
I was
to
gonna
the
get to
locker
this.
room
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like dared Damon Stoudemire to take a pee test because Damon was trying to claim he wasn't doing drugs or
And what
whatever.
and what happened with that?
I don't remember
No,
it.
Damon did it. He did it on the spot. He he went to the bathroom, and a team executive held the door open to the bathroom, and apparently like, look, picture this, if you will.
So I tried to watch him do
Canzano and Jason Quick are like kind of what I'm assuming Damon turned around, and
it.
he pees in the cup. He gives it to Canzano. Canzano goes and gets it tested, and he was clean. And you know what
Yeah,
happened at the very next home game when Damon Stoudemire checked into the game? Standing ovation.
yeah.
Okay, like immediately. So this is like, it was not a a folded arms, begrudged community that did not love its team and love its players and wanted to hold grudges or anything like that. Like, people so appreciated that Damon did something like that on the spot that he absolutely did not have to do. And there's a lot of, like, you could throw a lot of shade at Canzano, and I think I've even read some stuff from Canzano saying at the time, like, what a crazy thing for me to do. Like, yeah, you better say that now, because that's a kind of a bad look, to put Damon on the spot like that. But the fact that Stoudemire did it, and the fact that he passed it, like, the community immediately, I mean, it wasn't some begrudging thing. They gave him a standing ovation at the very next home game after he did that. Like, people loved that and appreciated that. So,
I,
I think that's just a great example of, a lot. This story with the Jailblazers is so nuanced, and there are so many things that happened here that Bob is responsible for, the players are responsible for, the media, fans, like, I think a lot of fans probably jumped to, the shorthand of calling them the Jailblazers, or saying, well, they were smoking too much weed. Wait, maybe that's why they missed so many shots in the fourth quarter, that kind of thing. I mean, but the story is just so much more complex than just white community, black players, et cetera, et
mhm.
cetera. Like, that it's roughly been the same dynamic, for the last 40 years, and the community has pretty firmly been behind the team all of these years and wrapped their arms around all of the players on the team, with the exception of Raymond
And
Felton, but that makes sense.
yeah, and River
because
Patterson.
because you couldn't wrap your arms around Raymond Felton. Um,
Well, once again, when you go at the fans, they'll turn on you. But
yeah, of course.
that same thing happened to Bonzi.
Yeah,
But I thought Stoudemire, once again, he's saying something that made me go, okay, so he gets it, and I mean, they were kind of talking about the technical part of it, but
yeah,
he said that she needed better awareness, that he needed to, like, think about what
yeah.
he's
Lack of
doing, and
judgment on his part. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I thought
and
that was
so
I thought that was really good. I like that.
and that was kind of leading back to what I was hoping for, and that was that it wasn't just, oh, this city didn't embrace me or didn't like me. It was like, oh, like, we could have done better too,
Yeah, yeah,
and so I felt like Stoudemire kind of alluded to it, and it made me. That's why I strongly feel the way I do, and I do. I mean, um, I just, let's talk about this here. She did not come to the reunion,
hmm
um, and
which is shown in the doc at the end.
yeah, and he says, "I'm not still mad. You're mad." Like, in the documentary, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you're not still mad, why are you not coming to the reunion then? And um, here's the thing.
Well,
I
I mean,
mean,
obviously he feels like he's moved on in his life and things like that. So now
yeah,
I don't understand why you
but
wouldn't come to celebrate the other guys, kind of like
yeah,
Damon did with Bonzi. But
yeah, and what I said the same thing I mean, I've talked about this numerous times, but Clyde not coming to the reunion for that team either,
Yeah.
and Clyde not doing a little video for Dame breaking his record and all that kind of stuff. It comes across as, you can't tell me that you're not mad, that it's everyone else that's mad, if you're still feeling some sort of way about coming, in my opinion. And so I felt like it was interesting hearing Bonzi being worried about it. And like I said, we'll touch upon their part of it later. But um, I was like, why do these guys think they're gonna get booed or possibly like have a harsh reaction? Like I was like, there's no way. Like even before that night happened, I was like, oh, the crowd's gonna love this, and like, and I don't think like fans, especially like younger fans, they weren't around for this, and
Yeah.
so they probably think of that era as a lot different. And it was one of the most successful eras, as Bob Whitsitt will point out later on as well in Blazer history, and so uh, man, I just thought, thinking back on that night and what she just saying in this document, I think he made the wrong decision there. I thought he would have finally seen that the fan base
Oh,
is behind him. They
oh,
would have
they
given
would
him
have
the biggest.
loved him.
He would have
Yeah.
gotten by far the biggest ovation out of anyone,
Yeah.
and yeah. So I thought that was a bit of a misstep, but he doesn't care about
even
that, I guess.
even if Damon, Damon alluded to, there's a couple of guys who aren't here. Obviously, Pippen wasn't there too, but
Yeah,
if he had called them out, and Sheed in particular, I think I just feel like the fans would have cheered. Like if Damon's like, we want to send our love out to Sheed, I think the entire Moda Center would have erupted in just a way to, from afar, send a message to Sheed like, hey, listen, like everything that
yeah,
happened, we love you, we appreciate you, everything that you did here. I want to get into that at the end.
yeah.
So let's move back into the timeline on the doc, so we can kind of move through this thing. So at this point in the doc, so what I've got here is the last thing we were just talking about was the Sheed article in the paper, right? In December of
Mhm.
2003. Okay. Now the doc, giving us the impression we're doing a linear storytelling, now for the first time introduces Ruben Patterson to the equation.
Yeah,
Like so many things have happened already, including Ruben Patterson, the thing in
hmm,
Seattle, and then him coming to the team, and then the thing with his wife. But nope, like where they decided to put things. So they're gonna drop Ruben in here. They're gonna say that happened here in the timeline. So again, they just said that we just lost in the first round to the Dallas Mavericks in 2003, and then they signed Ruben Patterson. It's just like this is crazy. So, um,
because he was on that team.
yeah, and then so now we go into Whitsitt challenging the filmmaker in terms of you know who was available during that offseason as a free agent.
Oh,
And he put this is where Whitsitt really starts like the heel turn in the documentary, which I was really happy about because I really wanted him to get it in this doc. And as he started to do it, I was like the Emperor in Star Wars. I was like, yes, yes, Bob, yes. Him come to the dark side. Like I was so happy that he was doing this.
ever milking a cow or something? What are you doing?
Yes, these are the udders. These are the udders. Yes, thank you. I'm from the South. I told you I'm from West Virginia. But and again, I was like milking it, like just the evil. Let the evil take
Yeah,
you over, Bob. So, but that's when we get Ruben did not act up while he was here. Wrong, wrong. And then, so this is where they really start to lead in on Witsit, which was great. And uh, so they do that for a bit. Then they finally go into Damon's arrest uh, at the airport for the weed and the tinfoil in the summer of 2003. Now, again, where this happened in Damon's life, he had the cops break into his house in February of 2002. He has the Hummer incident in November of 2002, and then he has this incident in the summer of 2003 in the off season. So in a very short period of
Less than a year and a
time,
half. Yeah.
yeah, a year and a half, Damon's now gotten in trouble 3 times for marijuana. Um, but again, like after that, like things were pretty smooth sailing. He ends up taking the piss test, passes that. The city immediately gives him a standing ovation, so on and so forth. But again, it's just interesting where the doc is putting stuff. So Witsit starts talking about he's tasked with being the GM of the the Seattle Seahawks, the football team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and he's like, I'm running the Blazers, and now Paul Allen says you're going to be the general manager of the Seahawks, and then he says very strongly, I went to Paul and I said, this is too much to do. This is going to be my last season in Portland. How long had Bob been the general manager of the Seahawks? Eric, do you know?
Why don't you tell me? I don't remember.
Since 1997.
Oh, really?
He was the general manager of the Seahawks since 1997. So from 97 to 2003, he was the general
Yeah, I didn't
manager
remember it being that long.
of both teams.
That is pretty crazy to think about. Like, can you imagine that today?
Oh
Like
my
a
God,
GM
no.
being the GM of both our two different professional sports leagues teams.
It's insane. It's insane to even fathom it. So, the fact that Witsit brings this up is like, well,
The
who
final
this
straw.
is so impossible. Who could do this? And by the way, wasn't there a lot of stuff too? Like Witsit was never in town. Like he was running the
Mhm.
Blazers from Seattle. Like, wasn't
Yeah,
that
something
a
like that.
lot of the criticism that was happening? So, but I really found that interesting. And then again,
The fans that got kicked out for the trade Witsits.
I
That
love
was
that.
funny.
I had that
Yeah.
on here too. I love that.
Yeah.
But then in the doc, now we've got they show the towel incident where Rashid threw the towel in Sabonis's face,
Barely.
which happened in the playoffs in 2001. So now we've just talked about 2003, the towel incident, which was it played a role in Arvidas leaving the NBA that summer, going back overseas. He was gone for a year, and then he decided to come back for the 2002-2003 season because he was bored, and they also threw $7 million at him, which isn't bad. But they make that towel incident as if it's linear storytelling. That was not accurate. So Sabonis comes back. Then they go into Zach and Ruben. So all of the stuff that happened there, the black eye, the fighting, and all that stuff. They touch on Quintel Woods and the dog fighting at this point.
Barely.
Yeah. And then we get to the 911 call of Ruben Patterson's wife.
Yeah.
So there's
Do you know
so many
when?
things.
Did
Yeah.
you write down when the dog fighting
I did
arrest thing
not.
was?
I
Yeah.
did not. That was one thing where I was like, well, it was, I thought it was around like 2003. I'm not quite sure. You could look that up, but that was the one thing I did not go and get a date for. Um, so, so when Patterson got arrested for attempting to choke his wife, did you find the Quintel date, by the way? I see you looking, but did you find it?
It says he pled guilty in January of 2005, so maybe into
Oh
2004 or
my gosh.
something.
Okay, so that was yeah. Okay, so
Just
that was
much later.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
much later. So So
I think the jail or the ID card was in 2003, I think.
I love the rookie card. It
Yeah.
makes me so happy. Um, so the whole thing with Patterson and his wife, the quote here from Witsit, I mentioned it earlier, but I don't want our players, even in a situation that makes us even have to talk about it. That's what bothers me right now more than anything else. Which, again, how about just the fact that your player did this? I mean,
Mhm.
it can be semantics to a certain extent, but so then we get into Damon saying, the timing, the city, it just kind of all went together and then it all hit all at once. And that, and I think Damon comes off really well in this documentary, but that's not accurate. This was a slow burn that started
Yeah.
with heartbreak in game 7, and then it went to like, what are you guys doing on the court? Too much tinkering by Witsit, and then leading to, not leading to, but then some players getting in trouble with the law and so on and so forth. So this was like peeling back an onion. Like, a lot of different things were happening. It wasn't a perfect storm that everything happened all at once. Like, that's not an accurate depiction. This is something that took like a good 3 years for all of these different things to happen. I know that when the Hummer incident happens on a Friday morning and Ruben's getting arrested for choking his wife on a Monday, it seems like things are happening every few days, but that wasn't exactly the way that things were happening. It starts talking about season tickets going down. It doesn't say when, but I'm pretty sure this now means the 2003 2004 season. That's the year that we traded Sheet away, and that's when the playoff streak ended finally. And then inexplicably, the the doc. So it goes from all of this stuff, right? Both teams played hard, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, and then inexplicably, the doc tries to tell us in the timeline that we're in the 2001 to 2002 playoffs. Like, how is this accurate? Like,
Yeah.
it's so bizarre. And because they're talking about, we need, we need Ruben to stop Kobe. Like, that was what Patterson
Mhm.
was talking about. And so I've just put here in my notes, like, the doc is officially like could
Yeah.
would fail a breathalyzer test at this point itself. Then I've got the fan getting thrown out for the trade Witsit sign.
Um, no mention at all about Sheed with all the technical stuff. Not even a mention of him getting suspended for 7 games for threatening an
No,
official.
no,
No mention of that at all.
I,
No, that never happened, Rich.
I'm
Because
shocked.
that plays into it as well. Like
Absolutely. I mean, he got, like, he got suspended for going after, literally going after a ref in the tunnel. And
maybe
who
because it
was
was
it?
Tim
Was it?
Donaghy.
Yeah, maybe it was Donkey.
It
It
was
was
Tim
no,
Donaghy.
it
Yeah,
was him. I know.
yeah.
He owed Sheed money, I guess, or something. But yeah, or maybe she was onto it. He was like, "You're fixing games. I know it."
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so yeah, very funny that wasn't mentioned. So, Eric, I've now got, at this point in my notes here, I put Witsit descends into madness. And that's what I've got here, because we get we get to see Sean Lee, which was great. Like, Sean Lee appears like out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
And Sean Lee says, "Oh, well, I thought it was about time. He should have been gone a long time ago." And I thought that was great to see Sean
I
Lee
never
there.
heard Charlotte talk. I don't remember that at all, but I know that this was uh very soon after the whole incident where they pulled Sean Lee from the radio booth
Right.
and then realized they made a mistake and tried to bring him back as a TV guy instead of a radio guy. And it just, that was when we did our top 10, which is on this channel if you've never seen it. It's broken up into 10 through 6 and
Yeah.
5 through 1. Our most like
Painful.
just painful memories is that made my list at number 10, just the way they've treated some of their announcers over time.
Yeah.
And so that would have been shortly after Sean Lee had to deal with all this bull crap that a franchise legend like him should have never had to deal with.
Yeah. Never should have had to deal with that. So now, Eric, Witsit is going to go into this thing about the Jailblazer moniker should be
Yeah.
a badge of
This
honor
this is
because only by his count, only three teams in NBA history
only
are
3, Rich.
are known by a moniker, and that's the Showtime Lakers, the Bad Boy Pistons, and the Jailblazers. And I
Yeah.
just put down here, I just put a few down here. Clutch City, Grit and Grind, Lob City, Run TMC, the Hamptons Five slash Splash Brothers, the Heatles, 7 seconds or less, and the Big Three in Boston multiple times. Just to name a few. What? Like what? What? Only three teams in NBA
Those
history
aren't the
have a
same thing.
nickname. Like, what is this?
Moniker.
Oh,
Use the right
oh,
fancy word.
okay.
Um,
Pardon. I don't.
it's a
I don't live on
moniker.
the lake. I'm sorry.
This is coming off his Neil O'Shea verbatim comment right before this.
Oh, this is what you
Um,
got.
when he said, my team's averaged 50 wins a year over a 9-year period and made the playoffs all 9 years. I swear to God, O'Shea had a
That's
quote
not a
where he's
bad
like,
team.
I've made the playoffs 8 years in a row. Like, like I'm a lot of GMs would kill for or a lot of teams would kill for a GM who's put their team in the playoffs 8 years in a
Uh,
row. It like sounded so close to something O'Shea would say, but like
that's
for
funny.
him to just be like, it wasn't me. My team's averaged 50 wins a
Can't
season and made the playoffs every year.
can't have
Nothing
a
I did wrong there.
you can't have a moniker with a bad team. Like just
Mhm.
I was just I could not believe it. I just sat there.
Um,
I was so appalled and thrilled at the same time that he was making an ass out of himself.
my favorite quote, and not in like a good way, but like I cannot believe this dude just freaking said this quote. So he said after he said the 50 wins a year and made the playoffs for 9 years, this dude said, "What an accomplishment for the Portland community." Did he just say it? Like, oh my God, what? You're now trying to say this era, like that we're having a documentary called Untold, the Jailblazers. Like, you're now trying to like change
Look,
into like, wow, this was like
it gave
what?
those losers something to hang their hat on, you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that I forgot about that one. That was a really good one. I enjoyed that a lot.
What?
Yeah, he he really leaned into it towards the end of it. I loved it. If the filmmaker wants to, you know, email me the outtakes of all of the Bob Whitsitt interview, I would absolutely
Oh, I'm sure there's some
love it.
gems in there.
Good God, I would love it so much. Um, let's kind of wind things down here, and I want to give you my overall impression of the doc, which I think may surprise some people based upon what we've done for the last few hours. But they get into uh, John Nash and Steve Patterson coming in. She kind of knowing that he's going to get traded, feeling like he's going to get traded. In the real life timeline, that's also when the article comes out in the paper, where she'd had all the quotes. So, she's kind of lighting a fire under management as well. Like, he's trying to create a bobsled ride out of town
Yeah.
to get himself out. So you get the Sheed trade, you get Bonzi's trade, and then um, they talk about the end of Damon's run with the Blazers. Again, they don't talk about the piss test or the standing ovation. I really would have enjoyed that. I thought that would have been like a great story to tell.
Damon right there says, "These people broke me."
No, they tried to
I
break
thought
me.
that,
These people tried to break me.
I thought he said these people broke me, but yeah, okay, maybe it was trying to break me,
Yeah, I think it
but
was try.
I didn't know who was he talking about, the fans or
Maybe. Yeah,
the media?
I
Or, yeah,
got the impression that that's what he was talking about. But again, I mean, it's a quick soundbite. We don't
kind of a weird
necessarily,
comment. Yeah,
yeah, we don't have the context of what he was saying right before then, and it could be creative editing, things like that. But so, you know,
Bobby also said when he got traded that Portland gave up on him. Um,
right,
I mean,
right.
yeah, I guess technically anytime someone's trading, you're giving up on them, but I don't know.
I mean, so many things like went into that obviously, and I mean we've talked at nauseum already about Bonzi's talent. I Bonzi had a world of talent. He never reached the level that Damon and Rashid reached, like we said, earlier in this video. But still, I mean, he had a world of talent, and under better circumstances, he might have been able to cultivate that talent a little bit better and realize an even greater level of his success. I, now we're getting into the fact that the team decided to bring these guys back for the anniversary of that team. And, we see Bonzi talking very nostalgically now about the city of Portland, Oregon, which caught me off guard a little bit just for the way that he had, told a lot of the stories in the documentary. And maybe he was more in a here's what I was thinking at the time. Like, sometimes you step into that mindset of what you were thinking at that time. So it's very easy to come off like in that same headspace. But now that he was talking about looking back on everything, you know, he talked
This
about,
is where I grew as a
yeah,
man.
it's like, here's where he became a man. It's not in the doc, but, he apologized for the way he handled things with the Blazer organization in 2009. So, I mean, that's been a long time now. That's been 17 years ago that he apologized.
Yeah, it said he had been, or Damon said that he had been trying to right his wrong with anyone he talked to or
Ever
whatever.
since,
Uh,
ever
yeah, ever
since the
since.
Sports
But
Illustrated article,
yeah,
yeah,
I I think this I think they messed up by not including him saying something about it, because it when they talked about it earlier in the documentary, it once again made it seem like, oh, people are just misinterpreting it or out to get him or whatever. And so if he really has been doing that, that's something I didn't know that he felt that strongly about, that he was trying to make amends for saying that stuff or whatever.
right,
I don't know why they wouldn't have included him explaining that, saying, "Hey, I to this day I regret saying that. I'm sorry or whatever for those comments. If anyone thought I was, or like if anyone thought like I was attacking fans or whatever, like I've regretted saying that ever since or whatever. There's something, and I thought that would have been the final nail for the okay. Bonzi's cool in my book. He still came across that way. Don't get me
I
wrong,
agree. I totally
it did,
agree.
but that would have really, because so in that moment at the end, Damon said that he did this for Bonzi or whatever, and that Bonzi was really misunderstood. And for all this Trailblazer talk, Bonzi never got in trouble. So like he didn't deserve to be included with all this, yet he was, and now he's like one of the faces of it.
Right.
And so that was great. Like I really felt for Bonzi in that moment. Like
I
I
did
was like,
too.
yeah, but at the same time, you talked about this last video, those comments, despite them not being nearly as bad as anything, doing anything illegal or whatever. Him flipping off the fans or whatever, like it, it still hurt as a fan just as much as them getting in
Yeah.
trouble, and it was
Yeah,
almost worse
it's a gut
because
punch. It's a gut
it
punch.
was directed at you, not something, oh, this guy just got in trouble, got a DUI or something off the court, which is bad, but it's not, he's not doing that to you.
Right.
But Bonzi's actually saying he doesn't give an F about you and flipping you off. And so I thought it would have really hammered at home how much he felt bad about that article and stuff if they would have just included that. So I thought I still would like to know why they didn't include him saying something about it
Yeah,
there.
I definitely feel like something is lost on the cutting room floor there that that would have been really impactful.
Mm,
Um and I wish we had gotten it because I really felt for Bonzi when he said that Sports Illustrated article ruined my career.
yeah,
Like what a what a horrible, like, just flashpoint. You're being interviewed by somebody, the team is not winning at a high clip. Another guy that was brought in here who is a registered sex offender on your team. You're having to answer questions about him all the time, and you had nothing to do with him coming to town. Like, just all of these things happening, and then you do an interview, and you end up just kind of popping off, in a moment like that. And I can't remember how old Bonzi was at that time, but I mean, he couldn't have been, what, 23, maybe 23, 24. And I mean,
something like that.
think of all the things that we've said in our lives at 23 or 24,
Yeah, yeah.
and much older. There just wasn't a microphone shoved in our face. So really felt for Bonzi in that moment. Uh, the doc really crescendos the emotion, like, it really ratchets up the emotions to come to that moment. And seeing the members of the team that showed up for the 25th celebration. It was crazy to see Dunleavy and Bob Whitsitt there. Bob Whitsitt got a nice ovation, which I was kind of like, wow, we are really being charitable. But then seeing Brian Grant, and I mean, God bless Brian Grant. It's just so tragic what's happened to him. And I'm not trying to say that he isn't viable as a human being now. It just, like, my heart breaks for him with the Parkinson's. Um, but it was great to see uh, Bonzi get cheered, and you just, I don't know, maybe I'm projecting onto it, but you can feel how much he appreciated it, he wanted it, he almost needed that moment. And then I thought Damon was really nice in his comments in talking about, like, we were not easy to deal with, we were not easy to coach, but we were working really hard to try and bring a championship to this city, and we didn't make it happen. But you know, this team was responsible for some of the most successful years that this franchise ever had. I mean, obviously, the franchise has had teams that had a lot of success, or regular season success and things like that. But I really liked where the doc landed. Um, I'll let you go first. Having said all of this, and I mean, we talked for hours and hours about it. We tried to exhaustively cover it. Go figure, us. Uh,
3 times more than
Look at
the
us.
documentary itself.
Look at us. Well, I mean, there was a lot that we had to cover and unpack. If you had just told it, by the way, you could probably get an editor and just do this thing in a linear fashion. It won't be as sexy, and you won't get to the Hummer incident until like 45 minutes in. But you would have a more coherent story. But that's neither here nor there. But regardless, well, I mean, throw everything into the soup. what what is your takeaway from the documentary? All of these issues aside, did you like the documentary? Are the issues with it frustrating enough to where you come away going, they didn't do a good job with this one? I mean, where do you come on it?
Um,
Like when you
I
finished watching it, did you like it
yeah,
or
like I said earlier, good or bad, it's cool to have your team. Just see old clips of it, see people talk about past times. You know, I don't think there was anything like earth shattering or new. Um, I did find it really interesting. The same parts that I'm sure you found interesting, just the whole Bob Whitsitt angle and just some of the thoughts he had and some of the statements he made. Um, Still, like I expected him to be a little bit more, I don't know, toned down after all these
yeah,
years or
a
something. But
little more skillful, artful dodger,
yeah,
that kind of thing? Yeah,
but no, he just that dude thinks very highly of himself, and
he loves him some
definitely
Bob Whitsitt.
yes. So I thought it was like kind of a slap in the face, but also like wildly interesting hearing him speak about all of it. I still think no matter what Sheed says, like he's a very interesting figure and
Oh,
very
to say the least.
like and see this is the problem with someone who is like that personality wise where they don't want anyone to let anyone in and just want to be left alone to do their own thing. Um, because
Or
people,
they're trying to protect themselves from getting hurt.
yeah, but like someone like Sheed is just like people want to know more about him, and they find themselves whenever
I
they
still
do
do.
find something out
I would
about it.
watch.
Yeah,
I would watch way more Sheet.
yeah. Like I said, he tells stories on these podcasts and stuff, and
Yeah, he's great.
um, like he was a coach for a year, and people wanted him to come be an assistant coach when Chauncey got hired, and like just not coming to the reunion and stuff. Like people want to embrace him and be like, no, dude, like it's okay, like it's okay. You're still our guy. Like, um, you know, there were some tumultuous times, but like you can still come back. I'll say that to Clyde too. On this channel, I've been very critical of that. You, people can still save it. Like you don't. It doesn't have to be to the point where you feel like you can't even come or don't want to come
Yeah.
to a reunion from those teams so we can celebrate you. And I know you don't like being celebrated, but it's almost like the way he acts makes people want to get more from him, even like, and then that frustrates him, and it just like this is never ending thing where people just want more from him, and he doesn't want to give them anything,
No.
and so it's just like this continual back and forth that never
I
does anything but
I,
aggravate Sheed more.
I
And
I tell you, as far as Sheed goes, I look at Sheed and I'm like, Sheed is obviously a very guarded individual. The people who talk about, like if you're his friend, he's this way, this way, this way, and I just look at Sheed from the outside looking in, and I just look at him and I'm like, God, I think it'd be great being his friend. Like I just think he would have your back. He would be funny. He'd be a good friend. He'd be loyal. It just, he's just like you said. I mean, you said it earlier, but just he's so interesting. He's fascinating to me. Um, I wanted to say real quick my takeaway from the doc. So I watched the doc twice. The first time that I watched it, I just kind of watched it and went on the ride with it. And a lot of the incidents that were popping up, it wasn't exactly like hitting me that things were out of order. And having a brain injury, sometimes you're going to be like, oh, I guess I remembered that incorrectly, or oh, I thought it was this, but I guess it's not. And there's just kind of a default thing there. And then and so when I watched the end of it the first time, I was very touched by it. It just the ending was just great to me, and then I watched it the second time because I knew we were going to do this, and I wanted to be accurate, and I wanted to kind of research and look into those things that were kind of making me hesitate for a second. And then I found all these inconsistencies, and I saw the way that they did the doc. And again, I I've seen a couple interviews of the filmmaker. I think he was I think he was I think he was very earnest the way that he did this documentary. I think he had no nefarious intent. He was not trying to make Portland, Oregon look racist. In my opinion, I think the way that certain events happened, I guarantee you they had everything up on because I've been in Hollywood and worked on movie sets and been in production meetings and things like
Oh,
that.
look at you.
Uh, right. Who am I? No, but I'm just saying, like, I know how some of these things go. Like, you've got everything up on the board, and they've got all these you know they've got all these index cards of when things happen, and they're like, we
Mhm.
need this to happen sooner in the story.
Yeah,
Like, this needs to happen here. This needs to go here. We're going to lose the audience if we don't get to the Hummer story sooner. You know,
yeah.
so
We need a conflict.
exactly, we need an inciting incident. And things like that. So everything in the doc is historically accurate. They just, through omission of not telling you dates, they kind of let you think, oh, this is the order that's happening
Mhm.
in. They're not lying to you, but they're also not exactly giving you the full story and things like that. Now,
Because they can go back and say, "Well, we didn't say it happened there. That's just what
100%.
we
Yeah, it's
presented the information." Yeah.
plausible deniability, the whole thing. And normally, like whenever I've done a breakdown of a press conference or something like that, and if Cronin says one thing but it completely contradicts something that he said a year ago or whatever, I'm very quick to be like, no, 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 no. Like, I don't like that stuff. But watching this documentary, again, to go down the analogy route, I almost looked at it like looking back on a relationship in life that didn't work out, whether it's a love relationship, a friendship, something with a family member, whatever. And it may have been really tumultuous, and you were like angry at each other, or somebody hurt somebody, like whatever. And at that time, like both sides might have been dug in and be like, I'm mad at you, well, I'm mad at you. And then they go off and they tell their sides of the story. Oh, she did this. Oh, he did this. And, like,
Mhm.
and there's always there's three sides to every story. There's your side, my side, and then there's the truth in the middle, right? And when I got to the end of the doc both times, I was like, yeah, it's out of order. Yeah, they do some manipulative things with the story to make you think certain things are happening in certain, you know, linear storytelling, because they're like, well, this is better for the story. Well, like, well, it's not exactly accurate. But I thought where the doc lands, which is in a healing place, is kind of like what you need to do when the smoke clears and that relationship that I was referring to, like it's now in the rearview mirror, like it's in the past, and like it almost doesn't matter who was at fault in a
Yeah.
way. It doesn't
You got
really
closure.
matter.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? They did some things. I did some things. Maybe I was reacting to them. Maybe they were reacting to me. But, you know, we came together for a good cause, and we were trying to do something good, but it just didn't work out that way. And regardless of the exact accuracy of the doc, I thought where it ended up, like it felt good. at the end of the doc, regardless of the inconsistencies and things like that. And I looked at it like, sometimes in life, instead of fighting for, no, 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 that's not how this went down. That's not, no, you did this and, you lied or whatever. Sometimes it's just better to just, hey, it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
let's forgive each other. Like, let's forgive each other. Let's move forward. And that's what I got from watching the doc. And it just like that analogy of a relationship, like it just didn't work out. It didn't
Yeah.
work out, and good people involved. You know, Witsit maybe narcissistic personality disorder, maybe, but for the most part, like a lot of good people, and quite frankly, when you're looking at some of these players, good kids involved, just trying to navigate themselves through being a young athlete with a lot of money and things like that. So I why anybody would watch this video and you have not watched the documentary, I will never understand that. You should
Yeah.
have gone and watched the documentary. We should have said that at the very top, I guess. But um, I'm really happy they did the doc. I feel like it could have been more historically accurate if they'd have just bit the bullet and done like 3 episodes. I think that would have been pretty, like 3 45-minute episodes. Um, but I'm really happy for the doc. It was not what I was afraid that it was going to be. I thought it was going to be really hardcore, fans are bad and things like that. And they didn't go that route. And but they also did not go the players or the victim, either. Like I felt like it was pretty spread out. Now there are certain conclusions that you can probably falsely come to by not really understanding what happened at the time that they happened. But that's narrative storytelling at its finest and things like that. But was really happy with the doc and came away with, like, strangely enough, like a really sweet feeling about that Jailblazer era, because I look at it like, yeah, it sucked, yeah, it hurt, but looking at how Bonzi feels, like, you know, apparently Bonzi paid a lot for that, or at least Bonzi would tell you that he paid a lot for that. Like he really feels that. She does not, which is classic Sheed, which is one of the reasons that we love him, and would have given him the keys to the city at any time. And then I think Damon is kind of the hometown kid. Damon's the hero of the piece. Like he's kind of this a little bit of the central figure, even though Rashid is the more talented player and he's the lightning rod. But you know, Damon kind of comes off as the really good guy in the story, the way they wanted to tell it. So was really happy with it. Got way more than I expected out of it, even though there wasn't a lot of revelatory stuff, but just fun stuff like Witsit, the way he talked Pippin into joining the team. Love that.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. Like it was definitely worth the time. I don't know if somebody sitting through this video was worth their time, but I certainly hope so.
Well, what I'm hearing from you, Rich, is that when Bob Whitsitt says that they deserve their praise for being one of the only three teams with a moniker of all time,
Hmm.
that you I can't think of any other thing but that you came to that same conclusion, no matter how you got there. It feels like you agree with Bob Whitsitt that the Jailblazers deserve their flowers as one of the three teams of all time for a moniker.
Uh, no, I do not. That is not how I look at it. Um,
Oh no, that's exactly what you just said.
I would also like to remind you of the two of us. I am supposed to be the one with the brain injury, but you are making a very strong
Uh,
case right now.
yeah, well, I mean, I did tell you I got my
That's true. You did get your face bashed in by a cop. So
yeah. But anyways, the um the analogy you had was really good. Uh, about just kind of after time, kind of you don't blame someone, and that's another thing that happens a lot in life. no matter how many bad things that have happened, those all make you who you are.
Hmm.
And that incident I just referred to, if that didn't happen, for example, I wouldn't have met my wife a couple months later because I wouldn't have been in that same area. So like, um, I'm not saying things happen for a reason or it's destiny or anything like that, but
Yeah, I mean,
bad things,
let's be clear. The cop did not perform the wedding ceremony. Like
right?
nothing like that.
But like, I was when you were saying that, I was thinking about like how I feel about ex girlfriends or whatever, and no matter how badly uh, I was hurt by some of them, like nowadays, like if I saw him, it would be like not in a "oh, I want you back" type of way, but it would be like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, no hard feelings type of thing.
Yeah,
I'm where I want to be in life. Hope you are too. Like,
yeah.
good, good for you if you're got there, or whatever. And so I was thinking about that while you were saying it, and I was like, that's exactly why I wish she would have came because I felt like that was that reunion would have been that kind of moment where you could say,
You could put a button on the whole thing.
here's the city saying, you know
Yeah,
what, that happened. It sucked at the time. We still love you, brother. Like
yeah,
we still you're still a Blazer and you still have a major piece in this franchise's history when all is said and done. And we haven't had really any success unless you call getting swept in the Western Conference Finals. But that's like the only season we've had where we've made it that far since
yeah,
the that era. So
yeah. 15 minutes
you know,
away.
yeah. And so I really wish he would have just came came back and we'd be able to express to him, like, dude, it's okay. Like it's fine. Like we still got your back and um we we still respect you as a player and he would have gotten that. I don't think he cares to get that. So
Yeah,
that's his right to feel that way. But I still, it does feel like he still has feelings about it, even though he tried to say he doesn't. But yeah, I just that's the one major takeaway I had. I wish she would have finished this off by all just having that moment where it was like, okay, the city might not have liked the stuff that happened at the time, but they also can respect what we did on the basketball court and how close we were to winning a championship and all that kind of stuff and how fun it was to root for you and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
but yeah, that was one of my takeaways. And yeah, overall the timeline did bother me a little more than it did with you. But like I said, it was still cool to just kind of it's almost like therapeutic to just go back through it and try to just put, like you said, a button on it where it's you can just kind of like seal it and yeah.
yeah. I mean, and they always say like forgiveness is just as much for yourself, if not for the other person. You know,
Yeah.
so sitting around, you know, being mad at the early 2000 Trailblazers, like what good does that do?
25 years ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
like what good does that do you? You know. So anyway, we need to get out of here, but let's just touch on this very briefly. Um, hey, the Blazers made the playoffs on
Yeah.
the exact same day that the Jailblazers documentary came out. Obviously, you and Tori covered it in your post game over at Blazers Uprise. I also think it was the fastest throwing up of a post game show I've ever seen in my life. I don't think you guys have ever gone so quickly after a game went final. That was so exciting to see. Like I was like, oh, they're already on. So you guys had a huge audience over there, which was really cool. Um, Denny was amazing. I did not think, like, we were texting each other when they threw that cross court pass and that, who was it, Royce O'Neal hit the three.
Roast O'Neal hit
Yeah,
the three. Yeah.
I thought we were cooked. I even texted you that. Like, I was
Mhm.
like, I can't see us digging in defensively with the short amount of time that we had left. And then we hit a couple of shots, and Denny just absolutely put the team on his back. It refused to lose, and it was amazing. Real quick, prediction for the Spurs series.
Well, despite how awesome it was to win that game, there were also moments where we thought, I'm pretty sure you did too, where wow, we're going to keep our pick this year. We look terrible. Like so, um, so like yeah, I know we won the game, but it was
Who is available at this?
yeah. I was like, "There's no way we're beating the Clippers or Golden State on Friday night." Like I thought that
Oh,
several times during that
oh,
game as well.
I just saw
Um,
I saw the Clippers coming back to Portland, and I'm like, now we're trying to beat them for a third straight game. Like, it can't
yeah,
happen. Oh my god.
yeah.
But now that we move on to San Antonio,
But by the way, Warriors came back in the fourth quarter and beat the Clippers tonight.
look
So
at that. Wow, Warriors moved on.
Warriors Suns,
Look at
and
that,
the
Warriors Suns. Well, I'm sure
Clippers
the
season is over.
wow, that's crazy. Clippers are out. Wow, that caught me off guard. Um, so
But yeah, the Spurs
what's your
series,
prediction?
man, the Blazers have had a chance to beat the Spurs in two meaningful games. One back with the group stage of the NBA Cup without Wemby playing in that game.
Has Wimby played
At
in any
home,
game that we've played them this year?
I don't think this year. I know he played. Someone brought it because I didn't think he had ever played in Portland, but someone brought it up that he had.
Okay,
Um, but anyway, but not this year. Anyways,
that's crazy.
like we had that NBA Cup game with at home without Wemby. We win our group stage, which was considered the group of death, and we would have made the NBA Cup playoffs or whatever it's called, and failed to do that the elimination rounds. And then we got our butts handed to us that game, and
Mm-hmm.
then we have a chance to maybe not make it come down to the last two games of the season if we beat the Spurs. Um, and they don't play Wemby or Castle, and we still lose to them. This was what, a week ago,
Yeah,
and and so man, it's going to be tough with Wemby. They've been by far the best team in the league the last couple months.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people are sleeping on that. It just seems like a lot of people think because the Blazers want a playing game that they can compete, and I hope they're right. Like, it'd be how awesome would that be if this team upsets them or makes this a really competitive series? But when the Spurs are locked in lately, they've been almost impossible to beat.
yeah,
And so I don't know. I don't know. I don't see it going well for the Blazers. I'm hoping they can take a game early in the season in the series, so it's not like oh, we won the fourth game and made it a
mm-hmm.
gentleman's sweep or something or get swept.
Yeah,
Um, but I have a hard time thinking that Portland would come out on top for the whole series unless someone like Tamani Kamara
oh,
just hits like 10 threes or like something crazy. I think it's going to happen multiple games in order for the Blazers to pull an upset. But
it would be shocking. I
yeah,
mean, like a major shock. Having said that, I I got a weird feeling like they're going to be surprisingly scrappy in one of these two games in San Antonio.
yeah,
Like I could actually see like a game 2 win and then just making game 3 in Portland like an absolute nut house. Like
mhm,
um but I agree with you. They've been so consistent in the second half of the season. But again, it's a lot of young guys. I mean, obviously you have, Barnes and Fox have playoff experience, but you know, like a lot of those young guys for the Spurs, Wimby, of course. It's going to be their first taste of playoff basketball, and the
Yeah.
Blazers have had to, I mean, with the exception of those two road games that we had in Denver and San Antonio, and really Denver was, we were playing with a playoff intensity until we got to the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, I mean, the Blazers have kind of been playing, with a lot more to play for the last couple of weeks than the Spurs have. I mean, yes, they were trying to angle for the number one seed in the West, but I think everybody kind of figured that OKC was going to keep pace ahead of them.
Hmm.
So, I, I, I just feel like at some point Wimby is going to guard Denny like extensively, and,
Yeah.
and just kind of like, look, they won't start out like that, but at some point, I guarantee you, they will just unleash that option, and then it
Maybe Jennings get in foul trouble. I mean,
right, and then it's kind of it'll be up to us to make shots, and as we just saw in the Phoenix game, I mean, even shooting close to 50% for a half is not necessarily going to guarantee us anything. So,
mhm.
um, we've got to play smart, and we've got to hope that they have some playoff yips a little bit, and
Yeah.
maybe we can steal a game or two, and
How
then
fun is it to talk about playoff basketball
it's
again now?
fun. It's so fun. I was so I was so tickled, but when we got the steal and then the pass was thrown to Grant and he put us up four with like under a second, I was like, oh my god, we're in. Like that that happened so fast. Like I couldn't believe it. I was so happy though. And I,
Yeah.
I love the fact that we play last. I think that's going to be a
Yeah.
fun dynamic. So all the other series get going, and then it's us to finish on Sunday night, and we get that extra day of rest, which is cool. So, but anyway, well, thanks for the preview on that, Eric. Thank you for doing this. We went a super long time. I did not anticipate us doing that, but there were just so many inconsistencies with the doc to point out. But
Yeah.
kudos to Netflix for doing this, and shout out to the filmmaker. Like inconsistencies aside, I get it. I see what you were trying to do, and had to get to the Hummer incident as quickly as possible. I have a Hummer incident that I could tell you about, but I can't tell you on the channel. So we'll cover that for another time. But until next time, Eric, any I don't want to say final words. That sounds kind of morbid. But any final words for this stream?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone who's watched this video, especially to this point, with how long it's going to end up being.
Yeah.
So just appreciate you all, and
Please click like, share, subscribe for us, please.
yeah, and that last video we did got a lot of support, and just know how much Rich and I both appreciate that,
Yeah.
and it's always cool to see you guys comment in below. So please do that as well. And
And do
you could
you
end up
and do
on a
you
video in the
and
future.
do you agree with us? Like, do you think that we're off base about the doc? Do you agree with us
Yeah,
about the doc? Like, what did
what did
you
you
think
think of
about
the
it?
doc?
Yeah, I would love
Yeah,
I
give
would
us
love
your
to know.
thoughts on it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
and I'd be curious if people came away from the doc kind of the way I did, like, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, we can kind of put the Jailblazers up there. Not in terms
mm,
of like with the great teams in NBA history, but just in terms of like our angst about
no,
it
no,
or
no.
shame about it or whatever. Stop it, shut up. We're not doing this. We're not doing this, Bob. Um, but anyway, but yeah, like we said,
Rich,
yes.
only 3 teams in NBA history have
Well,
gotten a moniker. I don't know what you're not understanding about this.
you can't have a moniker and be a bad team.
Yeah.
I love how the goalpost, and that's accurate because he was GM of the Seahawks. I love how the goalpost shifted to they weren't a good team. Like, no, that was
Yeah, they
never.
were good. That was part of the problem.
Yeah, that was never the benchmark for you. But anyway, but just amazing stories out of Witsit. I was hired in 1994, and Paul Allen said, "Oh, and hey, by the way, kid, we're making the playoffs this year." And he's like, "Oh, I better get to work." Like,
Wow. At that point, we had made the playoffs, I think, 12 straight years. So
Yes.
uh, find a way to get in again.
It's an amazing doc for some of the gaslighting in it, and just here's Paul Allen, and then
Well,
he hired Bob Whitsitt 5 minutes after he bought the team, like just amazing stuff.
that's the other funny part about him saying, "Well, I made the playoffs 9 straight years." Yeah, so did the 12 teams before you came here. So we have
Yeah, right.
been 21 years. Like you were, yes, 9 years of that, but like Olshay, which I alluded to earlier, actually could say, "Well, this team was not in the playoffs when I got here.
It's true.
Was not even close to being a playoff team. They just had like a mutiny against their coach prior to that. Got
And they
fired.
bottomed out after I left. I mean, although
Yes.
Whitsitt could say that too, but anyway,
Um, but yeah, like that actually he did that. Yeah, whatever.
he
But
did
thank you
the
for
thing.
watching.
Yeah,
Appreciate
yeah.
you.
Hey, Eric Eric is crashing out. Until next time, my name is Rich Finley. That has been Eric Brandt. Hey, go Blazers in the playoffs against the Spurs. We'll see what happens. And
Go
thank you guys
Blazers.
so much for being here. We'll talk to you soon.